very warm welcome to Yes Bank and CNBC-TV18 present the Growth Summit Vision for a $10 trillion Economy in association with Max Life Insurance. I'm your host, Mugdha Kalra. The Indian economy has accelerated its journey towards reaching a $10 trillion pinnacle by 2030. As India strides towards its 2030 growth story, it is essential to acknowledge the multiple avenues that are contributing towards it, whether it is our MSMEs, larger enterprises, advisories, or even startups. All of them have demonstrated relentless efforts in paving India's path towards a growing and resilient economy. Today's summit is not just a reflection of these efforts, but is also a platform to amplify the strategies and perspectives that can escalate India's journey to becoming a stronger economy. Today's conversations are going to be centered around the theme, turning aspirations into assets, how India's wealth can spark a new cycle of growth. As India's commercial capital, Mumbai has long been the place where individuals and businesses have made big strategic bets in the quest for economic growth. Its status as the nerve center of business development and wealth creation can be further reinforced as it hosts the first Growth Summit, bringing together the country's top policymakers, business leaders, and industry experts to discuss how country's capital resources can be mobilized to unlock new economic opportunities and fuel a new cycle of growth. Now, one of the strongest pillars for achieving India's economic prowess has been the banking sector. Yes Bank, one of the leading private sector banks, not only endorses this vision, but is also set to catalyze the process through its products, offerings, and technology-driven approach. To further deliberate on the bank's vision, we have with us a visionary leader with over 35 years of experience in the banking industry. Please join me in welcoming the turnaround specialist and the chief architect of Yes Bank of today, Mr. Prashant Kumar, MD and CEO, Yes Bank, for the opening address.
Very good evening and a warm welcome to all of you. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for converging here today at this Growth Summit 2024. This is a first of its kind initiative presented by Yes Bank along with CNBC-TV18. This summit is aimed at envisaging India's path to self-reliance and economic prosperity, bringing together the business leaders, the policymakers, experts, and the visionaries to explore how the key sectoral strengths and the regional business trends can be leveraged to accelerate our nation's economic progress towards $10 trillion economy. The inaugural Growth Summit that is centered around the theme of turning aspirations into assets and how India's wealth can spark a new cycle of growth. The global economic landscape is rather challenging, whereby the advanced economies are likely to slow in the months ahead, and the world economic order is besieged by geopolitical tensions, geofragmentation, and the climate changes. Given such challenges, it is imperative that we harness our domestic strength and reduce external reliance, thereby cushioning India from external headwinds. What is extremely heartening is that even amidst all these challenges, the Indian economy has emerged as an oasis of stability, confidence, and optimism. With business looking to establish their manufacturing bases outside of China, India is best placed to absorb a lot of the resultant opportunities that could arise from this shift. The expansion of the global capability centers in India across sectors, whether IT, autos, pharmaceuticals, energy. I would like to mention pharmaceutical as an example of how India is being looked at a destination beyond mere outsourcing purposes. While the Indian economy is set to hit the $5 trillion mark by the end of next financial year, the Honorable Prime Minister has galvanized us to aim for a $10 trillion economy by the end of the current decade. The government's stellar efforts to establish India as a global manufacturing and export hub is part of this grand vision. Transforming India from a services-dominated economy to one that is powering growth on the back of its domestic manufacturing prowess. Moreover, the large-scale infrastructure development witnessed over the last 10 years has really helped develop a very strong logistic framework, supporting domestic business in expanding both within and beyond Indian borders. The Indian government has outlined its long-term strategy focus in line with Honorable Prime Minister's vision of realizing a Viksit and Sashakt Bharat on the nation's 100 years of independence. This very bold and transformative agenda will be powered by innovation and collaborative efforts, uniting the country's youth, business leaders, and policymakers towards the goal of making India a developed and a strong economy by 2047. This vision for a Viksit Bharat is that of an India where sustainable and inclusive economic development is the primary focus, supported by the world-class infrastructure and a policy framework that will unleash a wave of opportunities for all citizens and reasons to capitalize upon. The priorities will be given towards ensuring timely and sufficient financial support, the training and technology support to the country's burgeoning MSME sector, enabling them to grow exponentially. Moreover, facilitating resource-efficient economic growth and achieving energy security through green finances initiatives and next-generation reforms will be the central towards achieving a Sashakt Bharat. To realize this ambitious dream and make the most of India's Amritkal, the next 5 years will necessitate an unprecedented pace of development and capital investment, leveraging the trinity of demography, democracy, and diversity to effect the transformative change within the Indian economic system. Understandably, the government's efforts will need to be matched with a significant uptick in private investment, helping spur the job growth and supporting the scheme goals of Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vikas along with Sabka Prayas. And by 2030, India is projected to have the largest working age group, around 69% of its population. Now, to support this young population, productive credit growth is needed in critical areas such as housing, MSMEs, and infrastructure. Now, all the while facilitating inclusive growth to uplift those in lower income brackets and empowering them to harness their entrepreneurial skills. India's credit penetration, which is indicated by the credit GDP ratio, stand around 51 to 52%. Now, significantly, which is lower than compared to like Malaysia, which is 136%, and Brazil, around 70%. Moreover, the annual infrastructure financing gap is likely to remain at about 0.7% of GDP through 2035, which is more than twice the global average of 0.3%. Another important focus area will be the country's the startup ecosystem that has been bringing out the entrepreneurial capabilities of the Indian population. Indian startups have been revolutionizing the industries, reshaping markets, and they have been making their mark on the global stage. Now, these startups are not only creating revolutionary solutions, but they are also fueling the job growth. Hence, it makes economic sense to continue to build upon this strong startup ecosystem, including providing adequate financing for the same. New areas that would also need adequate support from the Indian financial system is the green energy sector. That in turn would actually enable the carbon-intensive manufacturers to remodel their processes with more sustainable and cleaner energy sources. An investment of at least 2.44 trillion will be required over the next few years to expand the country's renewable energy capacity to 500 gigawatt by 2030. Now, raising such large amount of capital and providing timely funding support to green projects will be very critical to achieve this capacity target. The development of sufficient energy storage solution and carbon capture technologies, they will also have to be pursued to ensure a very comprehensive green transformation of the country's power sector. While the government has already started issuing sovereign green bonds to raise capital for public sector projects, private sector involvement and participation in India's climate financing efforts will need significant enhancement. Encouraging retail investors to participate in India's green energy transformation and channeling these funds into businesses that are contributing towards a green future will assume greater significance. Similarly, India's efforts towards transitioning to net zero carbon emission needs to be accompanied by holistic integration of environmental consideration into the financial decision-making process across the country's banking, the financial services and insurance, we called as a BFSI sector. Now, India's digital economy has also emerged as a very key contributor to the Indian economy, and Digital India program, which is launched by Government of India, to establish a digitally empowered society and knowledge economy has really helped establishing a formidable domestic digital ecosystem. And that is now being envied by the rest of the world. This initiative has been credited with promoting digital transactions and fostering never seen before innovation in digital payment solutions. Now, by this way, we are establishing India as a world leader in the digital payments. India's digital economy can potentially grow to $1 trillion by 2025 itself, transforming the rural economy and empowering ordinary citizens with digital services. This could potentially bring India very close to achieving 100% financial inclusion and unlock economic opportunities for the previously unbanked and underserved segments of the Indian population. Government action will have to be complemented by the banking and financial services sector, accelerating the pace of digital adoption, innovating new digital payment tools, and launching personalized financial products that can fuel the aspiration of 140 crores Indians. The ongoing digital revolution could also fortify the Indian MSME sector. That is comprised of 6.34 crore MSMEs, with more than 99% of being them qualified as a micro enterprise. And to boost the domestic output and help MSMEs in exploiting their full potential, it is imperative to fulfill the sector's 25 trillion credit demand, improving their access to formal credit and expanding the net of financial services, provided they are the key action that need to be pursued by the country's banking sector. By leveraging emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and employing technology-driven underwriting processes, banks and financial institutions ought to expand credit access and help the sector contribute over $1 trillion in product exports by 2030. Yes Bank leadership in pioneering digital initiatives to fructify this vision. We have been continuously and very consciously aligning our strategic initiatives with a larger vision of achieving Viksit Bharat by 2047. The bank has been at the forefront of powering digital India with its best-in-class technology, API stack, elevating it to the leadership position in the digital payments. Yes Bank facilities 30% of all the Aadhaar-enabled payment system transactions across the country. We are number one on the payment service provider space. Moreover, the bank has also made large strides in augmenting its digital banking capabilities, launching UPI payments through RuPay credit card, enabling UPI interoperability on the RBI digital rupee, and also holding the distinction of being the first bank in the country to issue an ONDC network gift card to enable new opportunities for the MSME segment. To promote young entrepreneurs and further develop India's startup ecosystem, Yes Bank has also set up a dedicated new age banking team that is geared to meet the banking needs of future unicorns and unicorns. In fact, bank also holds the distinction of being the highest rated Indian bank in 2023 S&P Global Corporate Sustainability Assessment, and has been ranked highest among the 34 large scheduled commercial banks on climate preparedness. We were the first bank to launch first green bond and green fixed deposit, and we are also the first Indian bank to measure and report financed emission of its electricity generation loan exposures. The bank's robust ESG focus and climate-driven governance structure is further exemplified by its commitment to achieve the net zero carbon emission from its operation by 2030. It has also launched a host of financing solutions to promote adoption of renewable energy, electric vehicles, and rooftop solar installation amongst the MSMEs. All the while deepening its penetration in emerging rural market and priority sector lending segments with tailored credit solutions. As we move ahead in India's Amrit Kal, Yes Bank aims to strategically leverage public digital infrastructure and contribute to building Sashakt Bharat through collaborating on key digital initiatives. In a bid to forge a new growth consensus and identify key trends that could accelerate India's forward momentum, Yes Bank and CNBC-TV18, we have come together to delve into this key investment trend that can be positively augmented to channel capital resources towards achieving key developmental outcomes. This will be followed up with similar events in Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Delhi and Hyderabad, with each edition highlighting the host city dominant growth areas and defining their significance in India's larger growth narrative. It is my sincere hope that we could all use this platform to explore India's sectoral strength, identify local business opportunities, and contribute ideas that could propel the Indian economy well past the 10 trillion mark by 2030. Now, this vision of being the third largest economy is largely predicated on a thriving SME and emerging large corporate space, boosted by the flourishing startup ecosystem. This will become the catalyst for a wave of new wealth multiplication for existing HNIs and the ultra HNIs. In fact, according to the projections, the number of HNIs will double in India in next 2 to 3 years. At Yes Bank, we recognize the potential and understand that this wealth creation is contingent on the growth of new and existing businesses whose banking needs evolve with the unique opportunities presented by a resurgent India. It gives me a great delight to announce the launch of our newest market offering that aims to partner HNI business owners as well as C-suite executives at the helm of corporate India in their endeavor to leverage their opportunities on the road towards $10 trillion Indian economy. And we call this offering Yes Private. And our Yes Private program, this has been very thoughtfully curated to complement our retail and wholesale banking offerings in the market. It also integrates the bank's expertise across the spectrum and brings a full stack product suite for HNIs across the family banking, business banking, wealth management, and succession planning. The program also lays out the extraordinary privileges and the experiences for clients pertaining to their distinct lifestyle in India and abroad. So, introducing Yes Private.
For some, success is just the beginning, and with the right insights, their wealth can help them reach newer, greater heights. Their path is paved with victories, and with the right partner, each one becomes an opportunity for another. Most define their own pinnacles, but a rare few define it for others. They are the visionaries, the pioneers, the unrelentingly aspirational, and they need a banking partner that knows what it takes to turn their grand vision into reality. Yes Private, a buy invite only, thoughtfully curated suite of superior personal and business banking solutions. with your own wealth studio that delivers personalized investment solutions to empower your wealth management decisions. Differentiated product offerings to match your stature. Exclusive lifestyle privileges, along with a best-in-class enterprise banking program and solutions to ensure that your legacy lasts forever. And to bring it all together, a dedicated team which helps you optimize your strategy by harmonizing all our product offerings. Yes Private. Bespoke personal and business banking solutions.
Again, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and be part of a journey towards achieving the $10 trillion economy roadmap. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that very, very impactful inauguration to the summit. And of course, congratulations for Yes Private. We wish you all the very best for the same. All right, before we continue with the evening, a small announcement. Please collect your souvenirs from the front desk before leaving. So that's one thing that you shouldn't be forgetting. Moving on, India's fast-paced growth fosters multiple opportunities, whether it is from investments or employment generation. Further, the rapid rate of digitization is only accelerating the growth of such opportunities. To decode the prospects that India's growing economic advancement offers and understand its advantages, we have a fireside chat on getting India ready for business. And to moderate the chat, I would like to invite on stage CNBC-TV18's Rima Tendulkar. Rima? And joining Rima on stage is a leader with over 40 plus years of experience in India's financial sector, having served as the first ever woman chair of State Bank of India. She has been credited with some exemplary technology-driven banking initiatives. Please welcome Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya, Chairman and CEO, Salesforce India.
Thank you very much, Mugdha and Prashant, indeed. That was a very insightful keynote, perfect to set the context for today. If I have to summarize in one word, probably this is India's best time in its economic history. India has emerged as the fastest growing economy, a growth powerhouse, an innovation hub, and investment magnet, at a time when the global economy is facing challenges, slowing down. But Arundhati, now is not the time to get complacent. Now is the time to double down and do better. So the topic of today's discussion is getting India ready for business. So set the context for us.
Well, you know, when you said now is the time to really get going, I remember the chief revenue officer of the current company that I work in. The first thing he said on arriving is, now it's not the time to be tired. Okay? So it's true for India as a whole. Now is really not the time to be tired. I think, you know, India has a lot going for it. And much of it was covered in the budget. Prashant also talked about how, you know, we need to really leverage the demography, the diversity. And in order to take it all forward, you know, the government has been talking about reform, perform, transform. So yeah, I think the stage is really set. We have the right demography, we have the right push towards infrastructure, we have the right consumption patterns, we have the right initiatives that can really set us on the road to that 10 trillion economy. And I don't think anybody doubts the fact that we'll get there. It's only up for debate as to whether we'll get there faster than 2030 or we have to wait till 2030 to get there.
So as you said, now is not the time to get tired. And we have to unleash that holy trinity of democracy, demography, and diversity. So in terms of the top 3 policy initiatives to get us to that $10 trillion economy faster, what would it be?
Well, you know, I think the few of these things, anybody who's looked at the interim budget must have seen it all. The first and foremost, of course, has been capital expenditure. And I think that is, capital investment is what really does drive the economy. It builds for the future. It creates employment for the present. It really lays a solid foundation as to how the country can progress towards its stated goal. So capital investment, of course, will be key to doing a large number of things. But a key to doing other stuff as well, or rather increasing the momentum. One, of course, I think there has to be quite a bit of investment in the social infrastructure as well. And you saw a number of schemes on that. The government talked about the 4 pillars that they really want to lift up. The weak, the women, the students, and the farmers. So the 4 basic pillars, and if you look at them, they form the numbers that they are in the country, they form the larger part of the demography. So there has to be investment in these 4 pillars in order to enable them to come out of the space they are in and thereby realize the full potential of the country, so to speak. So, you know, all of these 4 segments, the poor, they need to be included more, they need to be given more opportunities in order to come up to their potential. Women, you know, without the women workforce being equally productive, that 10 trillion economy is definitely not going to happen by 2030. And sadly enough, you know, India is one of the few countries where women participation is actually falling. We talk a lot about it. I don't know how much is being done for it, but I'm so glad that the government did mention in its budget, because that is a segment that does need to be supported.
Nari Shakti.
Absolutely. Nari Shakti, there is no way of not talking about Nari Shakti. The fact remains that we are 50% of the economy. If the 50% of the economy is not coming up to potential, you're leaving a big gap over there to be filled up by somebody else, and that's difficult. So definitely that's one of the spaces that is there. The next one that the government talked about is the farmers. They are called the Annadata, and they are the Annadata, and they are some of the people who are still not coming up to potential because they are yet to really and truly adopt the best ways of ensuring that they are planting the right crops for the right seasons in the right way in order to get the maximum productivity. Our productivity in the agriculture area is still far low and can be increased much more if we use scientific methods and if we use the right way of going about things. So that's the second one, and a third one. And last but not least, our youth. The youth is the strength of our country. We will continue to be the talent basket of the world. There is no gainsaying that. You know, in the company that I am in, we are actually currently running a support center, and this, by the way, it's not just a BPO center. Our support centers normally address the most difficult problems that our customers face. And we are running it in, of all the languages, we are running it in Cantonese. So Indian-speaking Cantonese are actually running the support center out of here. Now, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about when I say that we are the talent basket of the world. You can find any kind of talent that you want. You can find it in India, and you won't just find a few people. You'll find a deep pool of every kind of talent in India of the right age. So the youth of this country are actually its strength. And therefore, we need to do everything possible in order to strengthen them and enable them again to come up to potential.
Indeed, getting to a developed economy is not just about having a higher income. It's about getting all the members of the society, the women, the poor, the farmers, youth, and making this an inclusive and a sustainable growth. And that's what will get us to being that developed economy and that, GDP, per capita GDP aspiration of ours. But, an underlying layer to all this, Arundhati, is technology.
Absolutely.
And from your vantage point as a ex-banker who's, who knows the real economy, and now as a technology leader, what is the role technology can play in fueling our vision to be a $10 trillion economy?
So, whatever be the initiative, whatever be the organization that any of y'all are part of, technology is going to be the basic backbone of that organization. Without a strong backbone, just as we cannot stand and walk and run, so also no business, no enterprise, in fact, no initiative whatsoever can really and truly be successful without a very large dose of technology in it. Technology is the one thing which is very advantageous for India because we are so populous in number. We would never be able to provide the range of services that are required by our people if we didn't use technology. 600,000 villages. Is it even possible to consider covering them with all brick and mortar branches? Look at the number of our students. Look at the number of our patients in state-run government hospitals. Can we really provide them superior quality of treatment, superior quality of pedagogy if we don't use technology? So there is a lot of fear that, with generative AI coming into the area, there will be a lot of jobs that will be lost. My answer to that is, at this point of time, we don't have enough bandwidth to do those jobs. That is what is going to be done by generative AI. That is what is actually going to enable our country to provide those things that at this point of time we are not able to provide. And as we provide those things, the standard of living of those people is going to go up. Their ability to consume more, their ability to produce more, all of that is going to kick in. And that is actually going to kick off the virtuous cycle that enables growth. So to that extent, I think technology is very important for a country like ours, a populous nation where, you may not have ticket sizes that are very large, but you have ticket numbers that are very large. The number of transactions are very large. And without technology, you cannot manage all of this.
Well, technology has made financial transactions very easy and very cheap, I must add. But this entire hype around generative AI, all the headlines surrounding it, if you just strip that out, how much of this $10 trillion economy will come in from AI, and because of generative AI in particular? And do we need guardrails? Do we need some sort of regulation to make sure that the menace of deepfakes or the bad actors in technology don't come and play spoilsport?
Yeah, absolutely. But the comment that you made that technology has made payment very easy. It's not a question of making payment easy. What it has done is it has created a footprint to enable those who are ultimately not bankable to become bankable. A Pani Puri wala can now actually establish, because all his customers are paying by QR code, that he actually has a 50,000 rupees income per month. He can establish it. Now, the moment you establish that he has actually a 50,000 rupees income per month, he becomes eligible for a 5 lakh rupee loan. Now, that is not something that was happening earlier. And because he gets a 5 lakh rupee loan, now, instead of being just a Pani Puri wala, he can start a few other of his businesses. So what you are really doing is you are creating inclusion. You are enabling a lot of people who earlier were in the unorganized sector and therefore unable to access organized finance at a reasonable rate. You have enabled them to become included, and therefore, you have enabled them to access finance. So that's actually the role that this payment system has made. It's not the fact that while I'm talking to you, I'm also making payment for the chicken that I'm receiving at home. That's part of it. But the main thing is that it is enabling the unbanked to become banked. Okay? So that is one thing. Now, how much of this 10 trillion will come out of AI? it's not really a question that I have an answer to. I can only tell you that AI at this point of time is just in the second wave. There are many more waves that are going to come. We had a predictive wave. We now have a generative wave. There is going to be another wave when things become much more sentient. But you know, there is then going to be AGI, which is considered to be the fourth wave, when AI will actually be able to think of the problem, reflect upon it, and come up with solutions. It won't need the prompts that we are having to give it at this point of time. Now, how much will its contribution be at that point of time? Difficult to say. I really wouldn't be wanting to set out a percentage. But let me tell you, it is definitely and truly going to increase productivity. And we have examples galore. The way, you know, productivity has been increased by using, you know, AGI. I can see that we have less than 3 minutes. Otherwise, I would have told you at least 3 stories about what we see AGI.
Tell us one at least.
Let's have one at least. Okay, so this is a simple story about a person who's trying to buy a charger for their EV vehicle. Okay, so this person calls the service center and says, my charger is not charging the EV vehicle properly. So what generative AI does is it goes through all the pamphlets that is there, the brochures in the various, you know, units of that particular company, as well as in the ecosystem, and says that for your kind of vehicle, you're not using the right kind of charger. The charger you need is this kind of a charger. So the person says, but I don't really know whether this charger can fit into my garage. So generative AI says, not a problem, take your camera, go scan your garage. So the person goes, scans the garage. Merely by scanning the garage, generative AI is able to then tell them that if this is the size of your car, this is the model of your car, there is enough space to actually put in the charger. Would you then like us to order it for you? And the person says, yes, why not? Please order it for me. So automatically from services, the sales invoice gets generated, comes to the person along with a payment link. The person makes a payment. The payment link then generates a call to the engineer to come and do the installation, and the entire cycle is complete. So the services center, which basically normally in most places is a cost center, now becomes a sales center, becomes an installation center, and the whole journey is completed from one source. So you can imagine the way this has improved your sales. And you know, for instance, we've done some enormous, it's quite a long period of exercise with a brand like Gucci. And with that, we have seen that the service center people are actually now creating 30% of their sales. Now, that's the kind of, you know, uplift in productivity and efficiency that you can create with AI right at this stage. Having said that, there will always be bad actors. With every good thing, there is always also a bad thing. So, does it need regulation? Or is it something that we can get together and regulate on our own? There, the jury is out. We don't really know what will happen. But it is a fact that we have to be careful that this technology is not utilized for the wrong reasons. There is a very big possibility that it can be, and therefore we all have to be very, very careful to ensure that there is ethical usage of the advances that we are, you know, making. And for instance, the organization that I am in, we have a separate group of people that is simply looking at the ethical and humane use of technology.
But right now, at least we don't want to throw the baby out with the bath water because of those few bad actors. You know, we're running out of time. So I want to quickly throw in one, you know, last question about the participation of women in the workforce coming down. That's a topic which is very dear to you. You've been a champion. You've been an inspiring leader. You've been a role model for all the women out there. We've been talking about it. We've been talking about increasing the participation in boardroom, increasing women at every single level, providing them the support. Yet we haven't seen the, you know, the outcome that is desired. Why is that? And what can we do to change it? We've got leaders over here. What would you say to them?
The first and foremost is my request to all the people over here. Please turn up on Women's Day. It's not meant for women alone. Unless and until, you know, we have your participation on the 8th of March and you fill 50% of the hall, the idea of a Women's Day is useless. Because unless you empathize with us, unless you understand the difficulties that we are facing, we will never get past it. We just won't. So please, be there with us. Together we can solve this. And I would ask for only two things. Empathy. Please understand that empathy is very much required. And the second thing is, take a few steps that are fundamental to the reason of why women leave the workforce. One of the ways in which you can solve this is by allowing your women workforce to be both hybrid and flexi-time as is required. Hybrid and flexi-time must go hand in hand. And again, to my women colleagues out there, my request is, please do not abuse any of these things that are given to you. Any abuse of the facilities being given to any of the women, if that happens, there will be a generation after you that will not get those advantages. So please, ensure that you use them well, ensure that you use them responsibly. And I believe, together we can increase the women participation and ensure that the women fulfill their potential in life.
So let's unleash the women as a development catalyst in our journey to $10 trillion. Arundhati Bhattacharya, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for those deliberations. Arundhati, ma'am, can I please request you to stay back on the stage for a short felicitation, please? I would request Mr. Kumar to please come on stage to felicitate ma'am. We are grateful to Yes Private for the souvenirs. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for your deliberations, ma'am. We missed hearing the other two stories that you were going to talk to us about, but we are taking home your points on ethical considerations with the advent of next phase of Gen AI. And of course, what resonates with all the women is we are incomplete without the men, the good men around us whose support we always need. So, of course, that is in place. And a very important note which also strikes is when we talk about women on boards, we always say, do not use the gender card on the board. When you are on the table, do not bring your gender to the table. And I think that is something that we need to keep in mind if we have to move on as leaders, as potential board members as well, that gender, yes, needs support, but after a while, it's only about merit and how we can progress as leaders. All right. Private investments are a prerequisite to a nation's dynamic economic growth to prosper, and so much so that it is imperative for India's growth story as well. While the country is currently witnessing a very cautious phase of private investment, it is essential to amplify the opportunities it offers while also stressing on the risks and requirements associated with them. And to further unravel the private investment aspects and the space, may I please invite on stage Prashant Nair from CNBC-TV18 to moderate this session. And please join me in welcoming the panelists for the discussion. Mr. Vineet Mittal, Chairperson, Nevada Group. Mr. B. Thiagarajan, MD Blue Star. Harsh Shah, CEO and Board Member, IndiGrid. And Siddharth Shah, Co-Founder, Farmezi.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for being here. My name is Prashant. I work with CNBC-TV18. The topic given to us today is kickstarting private investments, risks, rewards, and requirements. And I think it's a very opportune time to discuss this because we just had the government presenting the union budget. For the last almost 10 years now, the government has done the heavy lifting as far as spending on capital infrastructure is concerned. Rails, roadways, expressways, ports and whatnot. But this budget was a little different. This budget essentially had the government slowing the rate of growth in terms of what it's allocating to spend on capital expenditure. I'm talking about the coming year, which is FY25. So if you look at railways, if you look at the housing, urban infrastructure, roads, I think the growth in FY25 as compared to FY24 is in single digits. That's uncharacteristic of what we've come to expect of this particular government. The question then arises, is the government now looking to the private sector to pick up in terms of their spending on capital expenditure? And is the government really looking to see that in a very big way? We've been waiting for this for the last many years. As I said, the government has given the lead and are conditions ripe for the private sector to do more in terms of spending on all of these areas. To discuss this, I've got a very esteemed panel. I've got Mr. Vineet Mittal. He's the founder of Avada Group. Vineet, great to have you with us here. Thanks very much. Thank you. Siddharth Shah is, of course, founder of FarmEasy. Thanks very much, Siddharth. Great to have you with us here. We have Mr. B. Tyagarajan, who's Managing Director at Blue Star. And we also have Mr. Harsh Shah. He's CEO and board member at Integrate Trust. Thanks very much, Harsh. So let's kick this off with a simple question. Are we waiting for the private sector capex to pick up, or is it already picked up? Is it already started? Vineet, why don't you start?
Thank you, Prashant. I think private sector, which was in cautious mode a few years back with everything around us, and then pandemic came in where capital preservation was the mantra and to survive the pandemic. And but if you look at in 2019, the private capital formation was in negative 4%. To if you look at last year's statistics, is around 16% growth. So I think private sector was sitting on fence, but with government's continued focus on building infrastructure, spending heavily onto the capital formation. Last few years were growing at the rate of 27%. Even this year, it's around 10%. So government has not decreased the focus. It's an interim budget. So post-election only, I think we would can really say about the government's intent. But when we are going into the meetings and talking to government and stakeholder, their focus has not slowed down. Even in the green sector, they are awarding $1 billion contract almost on a weekly basis. And those investments are done by the private sector. So
in your sector, it's obviously boom time. So renewables, right?
Yeah, so correct. So it's no. If you look at energy transition at large,
but it's a sector. It's doing very well. But is it broad-based? What you're talking about, which is private capex, which is already picked up?
So we are seeing, like, say, for example, if I just talk about my industry, earlier I used to get transformers in 4 months. Now it's taking me a year to send them advance and get those things delivered. So now everyone in my supply chain, even Blue Star is sitting next door. Many of my items they supply, and they are not able to do delivery in 3 to 4 months. The supply cycles have increased, so they are now obviously expanding because they are seeing consistent volume coming. So it's not cyclical demand. So we are seeing across the sector, people who are sitting on fence, they have started doing the capex. If you look at the PLI, we have...
Vineet, hold that thought. I want to come to PLI. Mr. Tyagarajan, I know also wants to talk about PLI. Mr. Tyagarajan, simple that first question. Has it already started? And are we seeing the first signs of it? In what shape and form has it started?
It has started in an extraordinary manner. And huge developments are taking place. Like him, there are so many customers. I see that in manufacturing sector. I see that in the data centers. In fact, it is happening more in manufacturing than services sector is my view.
But is it narrow or is it broad-based? I'll tell you why I'm asking. Because if you look at the capacity utilization data, which the RBI puts out, the last number we have is for June of last year, June of 2023. That number is at about just under 74%. Typically, where the number hits about 80%, 85% is when the private sector feels the need to invest.
My personal view is you have to look at from where we are coming. We were in an era where asset-light model, and in manufacturing, China was an easy route. And I will go to the extent of even exaggerating and saying we had forgotten manufacturing, many sectors. Now, to kickstart, it required many things to begin with. First thing is mind shift, whether India will grow, demand will be there, not there. Second one is connected with whether PLI will be made available. Third is whether import restrictions will be put in, tariff, non-tariff barriers. So you go around and take a long time, so that is good, but eventually it is happening. It is happening at a faster pace in some sectors. It is happening in a normal pace in many other sectors, but it has arrived. And like in my industry, the manufacturing capacity is doubling in 18 months. Market may not, and but it has happened with so many other things.
A lot more competition, which it also means.
So
which is a good thing. I mean,
it's a good thing, and I am of the view this PLI will be diluted in the pricing. It will go to the consumer because production-linked incentive scheme is a wrong thing. It is a sales-linked incentive. I have to show incremental growth in order to earn. Eventually, what is going to happen, we will dilute that in the prices. It will go. Many analysts may be adding this PLI as a bottom line. It is not going to happen.
Harsh, you want to comment? I mean, yours is also a sector which is going through a boom time for renewables and now for thermal, on the thermal side as well. So
on the renewables and transmission, but I think the private capex has already picked up, and it's a cycle, right? The government capex was higher. The objective is not to keep it high. Objective is to eventually sow the seeds for private capex. And I think, I would say not now, a year ago the private capex has started, and I think what Vineet said in terms of supply chain is issues are faced across sectors in renewable, especially in transmission, where the manufacturing companies are taking time to expand. The investments will happen. Meanwhile, the energy transition is playing out across the world. So they are preferring to export to Europe and US if they can and get better realizations than really sell in India and compete. So unless, and that's the thing that's going on. So the capex has already began because the market is not only India for them. The market remains a global market and we are becoming competitive there. So certainly it started.
And it's not just transmission. It's you're seeing that across some of the other
impacts. So let's talk about renewable energy. It impacts solar PV manufacturing. It impacts wind turbines. It impacts transformers. It impacts battery, backward supply chain. It impacts the entire value chain. What we are looking at is a surface, but the entire supply chain will cause boom in finely tilled base metals. Right? So it's the entire value chain which is booming.
Siddharth, why don't you chip in? I mean, you're not into power plants and transmission lines and solar manufacturing, but you're someone who started, entrepreneur. You put up a business. What's your perspective on this in terms of whether, what are you seeing out there in terms of investments and capital which is coming in?
I think, at least speaking on behalf of what I would like to call new age companies or digital companies, I think the investments from our end were always very high. I mean, on a lighter note, I can jest that people are always saying that you guys are burning too much money and just investing much more than required, right? So I don't think that there's ever been a challenge and, anybody should question us whether we're investing, right? The question is, are we investing more or less? But I think what you're seeing on the ground is that along with all of these hard assets, I think, and Arundhati ma'am made a point sometime back that there's a phenomenal investment happening in digital assets. From the base telecommunications and your 5G and 4G rollouts to the services and technologies that go on top of it. I mean, if I give an example of our company, without owning a single pharmacy, we can still service 18,000 zip codes because I can digitally partner with 100,000 existing pharmacies. Now they have challenges in their supply chain, which we are using our back-end investment in supply chain, but without creating a last mile, using them as transshipment hubs. And I'm seeing that happening across the board. In every industry, or affordability or access, transparency, quality of last mile delivery of your basic products and services is actually going up by several notches and miles. And you know, we often keep joking with some of our peers who went to the US that we perhaps have an app for or a digital service for everything in this country, right? From getting your shoe polished to getting your hair cut to buying a house to buying a car. There's nothing that you cannot do on the digital economy today. And it's affecting everybody, right? From your 1 rupee UPI to someone who wants to buy, a multi-crore rupee house. So I don't think that there's any holding back of investments in the digital economy, and perhaps that's going to be a big catalyst for all of the consumption and the economy itself to go ahead, which will ultimately then feed into this hard assets also growing lock in step with those.
Absolutely, and the way that we all consume things is completely transformed in a short time span, right? In the last 4 or 5 years. Let's come to PLI now, right? One is, of course, waiting for demand to pick up. Mr. Tyagarajan and Harsh, you also chip in. And the other is import substitution. And the government has been big on Make in India. Why do we need to import all this stuff? Why can't we make it in India? And it's shown some phenomenal results. How big is this going to be to propel the private investment cycle in that sense?
So, from our perspective, we can share that during COVID, in addition to Atmanirbhar Bharat, the biggest challenge which every country faced is the reliability of depending on a single country for your supply chain. And our dependence on their ability to jack up the price and the logistics price. So like I used to pay today $600 I was paying during COVID, $10,000 for the same container. So the whole cost dynamics was changing, and that made entrepreneurs, industry, governments across the world realize that is it worth becoming so efficient that you are sourcing part from the best location in the world. And India capitalized on it. They launched this program for production-linked incentive. And the external environment was very conducive for that. US and Europe were already fed up with contract renegotiation, non-supply of goods, over dependence on single country. So they started reaching out to manufacturers saying, are you ready with this product range? How are you cost competitive? And government actually made us competitive also because of PLI, and then topping it up with the state level incentive. And if you combine both of that, my sense is it's almost 6 lakh crore incentive has been given by the state government and federal government. And those would lead to almost 30 lakhs plus crore of investments into different sector. And that's going to transform many things. Like
Vinith, has it been a little slow though, the pickup? Because I mean,
so it's a sector-wise, sector by sector.
Yeah.
There are some sectors where the pickup is very, very fast, and they have already they were designed to serve the Make in India, but they have started Make in India for US or Make in India for Europe is happening. And in some sectors, there is slowness. There are some states which are not as good on ease of doing business as others. There are challenges we are already seeing on the power supply side. One of the northern state started telling that 2 days in a month we won't give you power and you have to run on the diesel generator. So we are already seeing some challenges happening, but I feel quite optimistic about it. Like we were sourcing almost 65 to 70% of our capex of close to 10,000 crore plus from outside India, which in next 18 months almost 95% of it will be sourced locally.
Okay.
So I can see that if I am able to make that much of change, and when I'm talking to all my suppliers,
right,
they are all ramping up.
Okay.
And that's what convinces me that PLI in short and long run both will be a change agent which will probably change India's, still we are at 13% of the total GDP's
Right.
manufacturing.
Hold that thought. Let me just get Mr. Tyagarajan. Mr. Tyagarajan, you know, in the budget, for example, this time has allocated, I mean, the number which they give you, you called it not PLI, but SLI.
That,
right?
No, it has to be, it is PLI. Still, we have to remember, it is not paid on the production.
Correct, on sales. No, my point is the budget provides 15,000 crores.
That's right.
To be paid.
Yeah.
Does that, how should we read that? Does that give an indication?
No,
that
they have been pushing us. There has been follow-up from the government, please complete the project and claim. And it is taking time basically because even the project execution is getting delayed. We are still dependent on manufacturing equipment quite a bit from outside the country. And when everybody is expanding, it's taking time. And most importantly, I don't think we have enough manufacturing professionals at all. And it is a huge shortage we are managing by poaching. And
eventually you'll run out of people. I mean, unless you have new trained people.
It's already, I keep saying, sales and marketing people were pampered over the years. Now manufacturing, the other area is R&D. When you don't have scale like China, if you have to compete, you need to invest in R&D. It's a pathetic investment that has taken place. So manufacturing has to be seen with not only the capital needed, but also the research and innovation has to go in hand in order to compete.
You know, the topic says risks, requirements. Does anything need to be changed? Or the schemes are perfectly fine from the government side, what is announced?
First of all, I don't think we should depend anymore on the government. The question is like air conditioners. By 2050, India will be the largest market in the world. And today it is the fastest growing market. If that is so, we all should go ahead and participate in this by doing what we have to do. There is a kickstart PLI is already there. And most importantly, a product like this, many products are huge carbon footprint products. So we have to keep in mind the net zero goals as well. This growth cannot take place without investing in that. So therefore, R&D and manufacturing, there is a strong business case. So we have to go ahead and do. The only thing is that the cost of capital is high. There is a gestation period. Ifs and buts will be there, but we have arrived. That's what I believe.
But on that note, also maybe things will ease. We have, bond index inclusion, a lot of foreign money coming, interest rates perhaps. Hopefully will go down. Although the RBI did not cut rates today, but hopefully in the future it will come down. Cost of capital, which is an important input, as you said.
Bank is there anyway.
Harsh, your thoughts on this? I mean,
I think. See, it's a cycle. And we are at the beginning of the capex cycle. To expect that we are going to reach peak is not possible. So all the green shoots are there. And like everything else, we are two Indias. One India is driven centrally. The right policies are there, the right noise, right incentive, capital. All of it is great. But eventually these are big projects that need to be executed on ground.
What are the challenges?
They need to be executed on ground. So the state policies, land acquisition, labor reforms, that is coming in the way in terms of speed of execution. You may want to put a 20,000 crore factory, but it's not easy to really put that in a year in India. Maybe it is in China. So that part, which is the implementation of the capacity of whichever plant we talk about, is going to take time. And I'll give you an example from our sector. Government assumed that we'll have in 1 year all the solar capacity ready in India. So we put a scheme to kind of, only buy Indian modules. But it didn't happen. The capacity struggled in 2022-23 because the manufacturing capacities didn't come in time, because the supply chain took time. So real hard implementation is going to take time. The good part is it's just a spillover, right? So maybe not this year, maybe next year. It's not going away somewhere because you are seeding the right seeds which are going to become trees in future. It may grow a couple of years later, but it will grow. So I would say the private capex seeds have been sown. It will grow, maybe a year later, but it will grow. So I'm pretty optimistic on that. But yes, we are two Indias. Implementation takes time in whatever we do. Because of our social structure, we are a democracy, a complicated democracy. So it takes time, but I think we are doing things the right way.
I hope so, because I mean, if you look at the new project announcements data, Harsh, right? I was looking at the numbers for the last 9 months. That number is not a pretty picture. I mean, it's at I'm not, and we're not sure why that is the case. Because as you were saying, the impetus is there, the government support is there, and something needs to come together. Or
it's a skill gap, as he mentioned also. Skill gap, social issues, regional issues. So we are, as I said, a complicated democracy. We are not a homogeneous country, right? So it takes time to implement these projects, but it's still done in a democratic way, which is great. So that's why I'm optimistic that it will eventually take place. Maybe a little later, but it will take place.
Mr. Thakur, you want to add to that? Or one thing I noticed, and I'm not sure if that's correct. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you used to have these large, lumpy, big projects, tens of thousands of crores. Now it is, I'm not talking about any particular sector. It is smaller sized sort of contracts, which is actually not a bad thing. I mean, from various sectors. We speak with companies like Thermax. I mean, we speak with you all the time. So it's more sort of disaggregated in that sense. Is that?
I don't think that is going to help to become globally competitive. We were all used to, like gypsies move from Dadra, Silvassa, Jammu, Sikkim, wherever this 10-year, tax concession or some excise duty rebate is there. If you want to become competitive, you have to look at scale. It should be large facility, and that's how you will compete. The issue is the cost of capital, and we are impatient in that within 2 years, 3 years, it has to pay back like that. Then you look at sectors like his, where returns may be very high and faster.
Who are you talking about? Sorry, you're talking about
both of them.
Both of them. The other advantage, Vineet, of course, has is that he's not listed, so there are no compulsion. Nobody's going to get on a call every 3 months and ask you, why are you investing, for the next 10 years, Vineet?
Actually, whether you are a private or publicly listed, the accountability and governance framework now is more or less similar. We have investors like Brookfield and PTT Group of Thailand, and they themselves are listed. What I'm seeing is the investors' mindset have changed. So they are not only looking for yield, and when they are valuing you also, they are valuing for IRRs which you make on project, but they are also rewarding you for the growth. So it's a yield plus growth play in across different sector, and they also actually look at that our currency is not stable and it's going to depreciate 2 to 3%. But is your growth much more stronger, and you have larger market needs to address. If you look at, I look at very closely nowadays procurement, because we are seeing supply side constraint almost in every space, because a lot of people still don't trust India's story. There are baggages from the NPA and bankruptcy courts and IBC process, which is actually stopping people from debt-led growth. So they are saying we will wait, we will earn and then grow. So I do, my partners meet twice a year now. And one of the reasons they are saying we are hearing similar stories from top 10 of you, but we don't want to do capex. We are happy making 100 crore. We don't want to multiply. We will use the same well to grow because of the way the regulations have changed. Governance have improved a lot more, and I think the culture by and large in India is improving, where people are saying, if I'm going to borrow from the bank, I'm rather be sure about my ability to pay even in the worst case scenario. And that's, I don't think that's wrong. It's being more responsible and prudent, and creating an economic system which is long-term sustainable.
Siddharth, actually, let's do one thing. Let's do a round asking. I'm going to ask each of you, what would you like to see from a policy perspective, from a government perspective? What would you like to see, which you think will be the biggest sort of driver for private investment in the country?
I think, again, coming from the perspective of the digital economy, I think government is keeping pace with new innovations, right? I think by definition, you will not be able to create legislation before innovation, right? So that is the very basic tenet of where we are. I think as an industry, we also have to realize that every innovation that we do will not necessarily fall within the confines of legislation. So we'll have to be nimble to adjust to that. I think so long as there is a healthy balance where government will create regulation to recognize innovation and we are nimble to be within the legislation, I think we'll all do fine, right? We don't want excess on either side, right? Otherwise it can lead to catastrophic outcomes. So I just think that balance is the best thing that we need.
Vineet?
Government is doing a great job on net zero. So I expect two things probably. Policy consistency is must, which they are doing right now. And second is to build port-based economy. Currently,
port.
Port-based. So actually, we lack infrastructure on port for industry. And if we have to be successful in making India for the world, we need ecosystem at the port. Like even at JNPT, if you need a 400 kV connectivity or 220 kV connectivity, they don't have. Because the industry has not come up at the port yet. And they haven't built the entire infrastructure, or if you want to set up a large industry, they don't even have land in the SEZ.
So you mean power lines?
Power lines, because if you are setting up a large factory, you need to evacuate power lines at a certain voltage, which is currently not available. So land is not available, other infrastructure is not available. So if India has to become developed nation, I think the path goes via the port, and water port-based economy has to flourish, and a lot more investment needs to go into that sector.
With regards to power, you can have a word with Harsh later. Mr. Tyagarajan, what's on your wish list?
See, if you plot the growth of every economy that has grown, whether it is Europe or it is North America or it is Japan, Korea, China, there is a clear correlation. There are certain lessons to be learned. Number one is the R&D and innovation. That is, some focus has begun, a lot of work to be done. Second is, in the name of Atmanirbhar Bharat, I don't think we should create a ring fence. All economies grew by opening up in a big way. And I think that's what we need to do.
You mean sort of not restricting imports, not having too many restrictions?
No, selectively at least allow the imports to happen, trades out of it, because if you do that, they are doing that side. And you're already seeing some carbon tax and other measures are. So how you will connect with the global supply chain? There are time-tested models actually. Yeah. So and the free trade agreements, a lot of things to be done there. And the industry also should come forward. I am ready to compete and therefore open it up. And like I think even in your studio I have stated this, a company like Blue Star has grown basically because of competition. If Daikin, LG, Samsung wouldn't have come, we wouldn't have grown.
Okay, so fostering competition, healthy competition as well. Harsh, what's on your wish list?
So I think I would say two things. One is interministerial collaboration. Right? And I think it's substantial change that we have seen over the last 8 years, but still sometimes you experience that they are in silos. And that's something which impacts speed of growth. So that's something which definitely the government can consider. And the second one is really there is a possibility of being overconfident and putting entire risk on the industry, on the private side. So if the right distribution of risk is done, there are certain risks which government is best suited and capable to take, and there are certain risks which should be with the private sector. I'll give you an example for let's say creating social infrastructure, right? An airport or a port, as you mentioned, or land or land acquisition. These are the risks which are social risk, the social assets. It's best to be taken by the government, and then the split between the private risk and the government risk, if it is efficient, then you'll see the speed changing. Sometimes we have seen that in the over-enthusiasm or confidence, we say, look, all the risk is with the private guys. Fine, you'll have a few $1 billion of capex, people will burn money, and then they'll never come for 10 years. That's the risk we run if we don't do the risk split rightly as a country. So I think that's a balance if the government can think of, would be.
All right, that's very well put. Gentlemen, thank you very much, all of you, Siddharth, Vineet, Mr. Tyagarajan, Harsh, appreciate you joining us here in the panel. So there are some demands, but I think there is a general level of optimism as well that the private capital expenditure cycle has started, maybe in its infancy, but will pick up steam over the next couple of years. Thanks very much for being with us here. Thank you.
Gentlemen, may I please request you to please stay back on the stage for a photo op, and of course, may I also request Mr. Manish Jain, Country Head, Wholesale Banking, Yes Bank, to come up on stage to felicitate the panelists with a souvenir courtesy, Yes Private. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we will now have a conversation fueled with inspiration, grit, and resilience. And to moderate the chat, I would like to call on stage Gaurav Kalra, Vice President, Current Affairs, Viacom 18 Media. And ladies and gentlemen, we have with us one of India's most outstanding tennis champions, having represented India in numerous international tennis events, including the Olympics and the Davis Cup. This champion has had consistent presence in Grand Slam events and has achieved career-high ranking in doubles. Please join me in welcoming Rohan Bopanna, Indian tennis player and Grand Slam champion, world #1.
I need to do the thanks right here. The hint is in the name. So, thank you very much. We're going to be talking about passion and persistence for long-term success. So all very big words. I know you're a sportsman and lots of big words don't necessarily come into your life every day. But I want to begin, Rohan, by just acknowledging what you've done. You are now, and I know Mugdha mentioned it, but you are now the world #1 in tennis in men's doubles.
Thank you very much.
Just think about how many people around the world play tennis, and we are lucky enough now to be sitting across a man who is right on top of that tree. Not just that, you've done that at, really you're just a young man, you're only 43 years old, you're going to be 44 in less than a month, but as you told me outside, that's just the thing. So I want to speak for all of the 40-year-olds in this room, including myself and a lot of others. Thank you for giving us hope, all of us who are facing this sort of midlife crisis in our jobs. Here you are, you can get to the top of the tree at 44. It must feel like, do you wake up sometimes and say, is all of this real?
First of all, good evening to you all. Lovely to be here. Something different from my normal job, so it's really nice to do this. And Gaurav, thank you. I wake up very happy with what I'm doing, and the age is the last thing I'm really thinking about. Especially being at #1 in the world, I don't think I should even think twice about that. So really happy with the way the year has been, how the progress has been. But yeah, just enjoying the journey currently.
Let's actually talk about that word perseverance. I mean, just for the audience here, Rohan turned professional, which is how you become, when you play on the circuit and make money, and that's your livelihood essentially. Back in 2003, if I'm not mistaken, it's taken you 21 years, but you haven't given up. The team back here gave me some stats. There have been 19 different doubles partners, men's doubles partners. There have been 61 slams that you've played, and finally you're a men's doubles champion. I know you won a mixed doubles champion. So this kind of perseverance, where have you got this from to just keep doing this day in and day out?
Yeah, it's definitely taken a long time, and I was reading this book where it says, and I'm sure you have heard this term of 10,000 hours. I started my tennis journey at the age of 10, and I really feel initial stages, every academy I went to, they said I was not good enough. I was born in Bangalore, but brought up in a place called Coorg. My parents still live there, in the beautiful land of coffee. But I think I never had anyone to really play with. So, so the hours were less, and I really feel I started maturing much later. The number one thing which I really had is, no matter what the coaches told me or the trainers told me, I woke up every single day and did that. I think that's the perseverance side of me which kept me going, no matter whether I was losing first rounds every single tournament I went to as a junior. I don't think anyone in the country who has played tennis for a long period of time, they even heard my name in the junior circuit. It was only at the age of 21 I had a big breakthrough, and I really feel 4-5 years ago I must have completed that 10,000 hours, and then that is where I feel now I've completely matured past that, and using all my experience to understand myself and enjoy competing at the highest level.
Yes, and we've enjoyed watching you. The other aspect of your success, which is remarkable, is that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like you to take a look at this wonderful athlete. He's very fit. He's all of this sort of remarkable international athlete. But you've got the knees of a very, very old man, don't you? You've got no cartilage in your knees, so you're not supposed to be competing in international sport, let alone beating the best players in the world. Once again, where has that come from, that you've willed this sort of, for want of a better expression, almost broken body of yours to reach right the top of the world?
You're right, Gaurav. The cartilages have completely worn out. But the good part is that, these are the limitations. Sometimes we set ourselves that, my knees are weak and I can't do too much. But then I looked at it as maybe it's an opportunity now to try and get better and see what we can do. And end of 2019, when I realized that my cartilages were fully worn out, my doctor in Bangalore said, try the platelet-rich plasma, PRP injections. And he said the injections might work, but it's not like you just take the injection and go play right after that. You need to do a lot of strengthening. So the COVID time was kind of blessing in disguise for me. That's when I really discovered Iyengar yoga. Even though yoga is, part and parcel of, a country, but I always thought it's something very slow. I wouldn't enjoy it. But at this juncture, I said I need to try it, because anytime I went to the gym, I tried to lift weights, did some leg press. It was too much of pain. And then end of 2019, I was on 2-3 painkillers a day. So I started, during the pandemic, I started doing Iyengar yoga for about 4 times in a week, 90-minute sessions. And surprisingly, slowly the muscles started, building up again, and the strength, I could feel much stronger. Immediately when I started playing tennis, I didn't feel any pressure on the knees. And that, I said, this is, first of all, no pain, which felt great. And so then I went back to the yoga teacher and I said, how I feel. And I said, okay, we worked on the knees, but I need to work on, my entire body. And then somewhere I feel also my mind became calmer. on the court, I feel that I don't feel rushed. You know, I think clearly, I understand no matter whether it's a match point down, set point down, no matter what the scenario is, I don't feel that I'm, feeling tensed or feeling rushed in any single way. And I think that perspective of that mental strength has changed, which is, I think, really helped me in my journey for the past 2 years.
Yes, in fact, you won a record number of tie breaks, if I'm not mistaken, at the Australian Open to ultimately win that tournament, which meant that you were always in pressure situations and you were responding really well to them. Now, you know, since we are at this, since we are at a growth summit, and we should talk about how the growth journey of an athlete, the fact that you're experiencing this high also comes at the back of some really difficult lows that you've had to endure. And one of the things that caught my eye, and I'd like you to talk to people about that, Rohan, is you mentioned that there was one moment, I think 3 or 4 years ago, you have referenced this, where you actually recorded a video and sent it to your wife saying, I think I'm done. Can you talk us through what that moment was and how you found a way back from there to reach where you are, the #1 player in the world?
Yeah, Gaurav, that was an extremely difficult period of time. It was in 2021. I played the professional circuit for about 18 years, and I was doing that every single day in, day out. And I started 2021, and I went 5 months without even winning a match. And then that's when I could not understand what was going on, because I'd done this for so long, and I don't think that I had that kind of period where it was such a low that every time I was going to tournaments, doing the right thing, practicing, but I was not able to win the match. So I'm sitting in Portugal, there's a tournament in Estoril, and I'm sitting across the ocean. I love the water and everything. So it was amazing just sitting there. And I started expressing these thoughts in my head, to myself. And then after maybe 10, 15 minutes, I said, okay, let me, pull out my phone, record a video, and send it to my wife of, how I'm feeling. I said the best person is to send my wife because my wife is a psychologist, and I feel somewhere
that explains the newfound maturity, and that's what I was wondering about.
She's my in-house shrink, I think, somehow. Just expressing myself, I think, totally started understanding, how I was feeling. I suddenly got into this rat race of saying I need to win matches in order to get my ranking better. My ranking is dropping, and I needed to. I forgot why I started this journey, why I picked up tennis. The main reason was because I enjoyed the sport, I enjoyed competing, and for that 3-4 months, I kind of had lost that. So by just talking about it or speaking to it loudly and just recording myself on a video, suddenly I realized what I was missing. So the minute I went to the following week and I said, okay, let's just not worry about the result and, enjoy the match. I won my first match and, then it changed everything.
Does the video still exist on your wife's phone or your phone?
I think she has it.
Okay, so I guess it's the job of a pesky journalist now to somehow get that video out and say, all right, 4 years ago, before and after. Let's talk a little bit about the role as a role model now. Like I said, you can be a young athlete, have success. You did that. You've had a lot of success as a young athlete. Sure, this is the pinnacle. But even now, as the success you're having in your 40s, with so many people watching and admiring, do you see that as an important facet of your role as an ambassador for sport? That you need to be a role model, not just to young people, but also to people such as a lot of us 40-year-olds in this room who think, right, there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
No, I think the biggest thing is there is no time limit. Success can come at any time. I don't think success come at a particular age. It can come to all of us at any given time. And I constantly tell a lot of the parents who bring their students to my academy in Bangalore, I keep telling them, don't be in a hurry. And the minute the kids are 14, 15, if they're not ranked top 10 in the country, they want to pull them out and send them to education and everything. I said that is where we do best because we are spending maximum hours of time in the school. Hence their priority is that. If you change that perspective and spend those hours in a sporting ground, the chances of them doing the same thing is extremely high. And anytime a parent is there at a coaching center, maybe few of you all have witnessed this or heard this, that we are outside there watching our kids train, and then we tell the coach, this happened, he should have done this better. But not once as a parent we have ever gone to the classroom and told the teacher what to do. But when it comes to sport, we are all great sportsmen and coaches ourselves, even though we have not played that sport. So I really feel that if you give that kid a chance, and if you send them to whatever academy, you need to trust the coaches like how we trust the teachers in the classroom. And similarly, it is a journey. It takes 10 months, 12 months to go to the next step. But in sport, after 2-3 months, say example, John said Rohan Bopanna Academy, they want him to become the next Rohan Bopanna in 3-4 years. It's impossible. It's impossible. No matter which coach you have in the world, it's not possible. So the journey, I tell them, is a long journey. It's a process. No matter, yes, of course, there are exceptions that few people, come out and, become world-class champions. But at the end of the day, it is still that constant day in, day out of sacrifices, which comes from the parents as well, including, the children. For me, I've missed tons of birthdays, tons of family weddings and everything because my priority was tennis. I think that is something I try to keep telling them, no matter who it is, you need to find out what is your goal, what is your priority. And then I think at any age it is possible to achieve that success.
Yep. So if you're starting at 10, you could wait 34 years, but you'll still get that Grand Slam title, and that would be the journey.
Why not? If that is something you have started and you want to achieve the best and be at the top, I don't think there should be a time limit because everyone else sets those limitations for us. It's not us who set the limitations for ourselves.
There's another fascinating aspect about doubles tennis, which I think, people would appreciate understanding, is that as opposed to the singles game, obviously you're in it with a partner. And there have been some wonderful stories of your partners you've had a lot of success with. Matthew Ebden of Australia. Normally Indians and Australians don't get along very well if you look at the history in cricket, so you've broken that mold as well. But Aisam Al-Qureshi, for instance, from Pakistan, you guys reached the final of the US Open 2010, a long time back. Sania Mirza, with whom you've had a successful mixed doubles partnership. Can you talk us through what it takes to be building partnerships of this kind and coming together as this doubles unit that actually has success?
I think very simple, Gaurav. The biggest number one key is communication. That's what builds good partnerships. No matter who I've played with, I really felt if you share a good rapport, even off the court, and build that camaraderie, build that communication, whenever I went on court and played with them, it became that much easier. Especially when it was close moments, tough moments. Qureshi and myself were friends for a long period of time before we even started, playing the doubles together. One of the reasons we started was when we were traveling. I was one player from India and he was one player from Pakistan traveling, and all the Europeans started hanging out together, South Americans hanging out together, and we said, okay, we have some common interests in terms of food and everything, and tennis being such a lonely tour, it's good to have some friends. And I think that friendship started, and before we even teamed up together, simultaneously all the other partners, I think I got along with them off the court really well, and that actually helped in that partnership on the court as well.
One of the other wonderful things that's happening, and I've spent a lot of time around sport. I'm a little bit older than you, although perhaps looking at us, I probably can pass off as the younger man, not really. But there's these wonderful stories that have come through which are non-cricket stories. Neeraj Chopra, we all know the success he's had. Chirag Satvik now, #1 ranked players, doubles pair in the world. We are seeing you reaching the #1 ranking in the world. Some of our young shooters ranked #1. There's success across sport. And you play internationally a lot. Do you see a perception change about India, about the way the nation is perceived, and how that's reflected in the sporting achievements we are having?
No, I think it makes a huge difference having support from the government, corporates, everyone coming together and supporting sports, because I really feel we have phenomenal talent in the country. It's just that the lack of opportunities, which doesn't get us, through there. I mean, if you look at tennis, you have to be a member of a country club or, join an academy, which is sometimes very expensive. Otherwise, there's no really route to get there. And thankfully, to all these other sportsmen also who are doing well, has definitely changed the perspective of, the younger parents who want to get their kids, in various different sports now. And I think sports builds a fantastic friendship. Tennis is a great teacher of discipline, bringing a structure in place, solving problems from a very young age, teaching you failure from a very young age. So I think sport itself, I think, is an amazing thing to really pick up, whether it is recreational or professional, you want to take it. I think it just encourages so many different levels, and I'm great to hear that, or to see and be part of these guys who are doing well in various different sports. And I think India is just growing. In 25, 30 years, we'll have, top athletes in every discipline, I feel.
Just a side note, all of the guys I mentioned, they're all in their 20s, huh? So you got...
That's why I said 20 more years.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
We've just got a couple of minutes now, and Rohan has to go as well. So just some final couple of thoughts. I mean, you've started the year really well. And there's a big touch point this year, isn't there, which is the Olympics. In Paris, few months to go from here. Of course, the way you're playing, you'll have to play with an Indian partner, all of that. Just thoughts on that, given that there's been a bit of a sketchy history at the Olympics as far as Indian tennis players in the past are concerned. Is that on your radar now, having success at the Olympics?
I think the number one thing is just getting tennis back at Olympics. I mean, having a spot there, being number one now. I can definitely choose, partner, anyone who's ranked top 300 in the country. We do have a few players ranked from 60 to about 130. We have about 10 players. Anyone I'm going to be playing with is going to making their debut. But I think that they have nothing to lose. I think the opportunity is there to go and really represent the country. It's a fantastic opportunity. I mean, there's nothing bigger than representing your country at Olympics. And I really feel that as a team, we could be really dangerous. Nobody really knows, how we're going to play. So, and also at Olympics, when, like you said, you have to play with somebody from your own country. Most of the doubles players on the circuit, they are playing with partners from different countries. So they also have to, come together and, get matched up pretty well. So I think anything can happen that 1 week. I've seen this, major change in the last 4 days of the Grand Slam, which I was playing. So, I'm definitely positive with that.
All right, we're out of time. So final thoughts from Rohan Bopanna before we leave. Let him go. One, Novak Djokovic, in that there was a lovely video doing the rounds after the Australian Open, said if you could partner him when he finishes up playing doubles, is that on the cards? What would be lovely to see? Any chance of a Bopanna-Djokovic pairing sometime at a Grand Slam?
At a Grand Slam, definitely not. I don't think he wants to play at a Grand Slam. But yeah, at an ATP event, yeah, definitely possible. Right. Hopefully that, happens one day.
Heard it first here, Rohan Bopanna and Novak Djokovic. And I think I have to let you go. Lots of films being made and biopics being made on sports persons who've had success. So have you started to think about who should play Rohan Bopanna if there's a Bollywood blockbuster made on you?
Thank you, Gaurav. I think the time is up. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for everything. And
all right, we'll take a straw poll on that one. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. May I please request you to stay back on stage, and I would once again request Mr. Prashant Kumar to please come up on stage and felicitate Rohan with a souvenir courtesy as private. Thanks, Gaurav. Ladies and gentlemen, Rohan Bopanna. Well, we now have another conversation fueled with vision for completely utilizing India's growing economic prowess. To amplify ideas on leveraging India's economic growth story in the best possible way, I would now request Reema Tendulkar once again to please come up on stage to moderate this session. To join Reema for this chat, we have with us a leader who has been a true technological visionary. He has been a driving force in building persistent systems from its inception in 1990 to the publicly traded global company of today. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Anand Deshpande, founder, chairman and MD, Persistent Systems.
Opportunity meets optimism. He's the founder of Persistent, but today I want, but after starting off and, making Persistent the success that it is, today he's donning many hats. That of, seeding many nano entrepreneurs, providing them that support, focusing a lot on educating young India. So in fueling India's journey to this $10 trillion goal, I want to talk a little bit more about some of these smaller aspects. They're small, but they have a big impact. So Anand, we've spoken a lot about, investments, Make in India, manufacturing, PLI, etc. But in this journey to $10 trillion, how do you see it? What are the other aspects that we need to focus on?
So first, thanks a lot for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be here. Clearly, India will get to $10 trillion, and I'm very excited about that. How fast we get there and how we get there, I think that's a good question. And in that case, very simplistically, I think that in addition to the engineering and other investments that we are looking at, I think we need to focus on, in a very big way, in essentially some level of research and higher end of the food chain in some sense. A lot of our work right now, and we need the scale, but we really need to find innovation and research to drive productivity gains and for us to get to the 10 trillion very quickly. So that would be one end. But while we are doing this, we need to be inclusive and focus on entrepreneurship, and especially at the grassroots levels. And their combination of education and entrepreneurship would be the two main things that I would focus on.
So talking about entrepreneurs, a space that's close to you is nano entrepreneurs. They are the smallest subset of the MSMEs. Our focus is always on the larger guys, the Zomatos and the Paytms, and then we focus a lot on MSMEs. But nano entrepreneurs is where you've set your eyes on, yes, and you work very closely. So tell us the challenges that they face and what can we do to get them, give them that required support and get them into that Indian economy and grow.
Right, so for the last 10 years or so, I've been running a foundation of my own called Deyasra Foundation, where we are focused on these nano entrepreneurs, which we refer to as businesses between, say, who make about 5 lakh rupees to 1 crore of rupees. So these are typically businesses that are between the 1 to 5 employees to 10 employee type stuff. Very small, tiny, but in large numbers. I was quite shocked to see when I first looked at these numbers that almost 95% of all businesses in India can be classified as MSMEs, and 90+% of those are actually those which are sub 1 crore. So India is really made up of lots of very, very small businesses. And somehow we don't do enough to help them. These are businesses like the photographers, the beauty salons, the food counters, and lots of home-end businesses, people doing additional income for various things. So the complexity of running these small businesses is very high, and that makes it very difficult for these businesses to succeed. And they are running at very fine margins in some sense. So some bad thing that can happen will really put them off. So the main challenges that these businesses have are, first is access to credit. And we talked a lot about how banks are starting to help these businesses, but really very small businesses are not exactly SME level. So SMEs go all the way up to 250 crores. So these 50 lakh rupee businesses find it very hard to get access to credit. And hopefully some of the changes that are happening with account aggregators and all that, we might see some of that. But certainly that is a big part of the challenge. Access to market is another big issue. A lot of small businesses don't know exactly how to position their business, how to make it global or even sell in the markets. So a lot of online stuff is starting to happen, and ONDC may be a good way to address that. But I think we still are at the very early days of those kinds of businesses. So there are many such issues that we have identified, and we think that so I've been devoting a lot of my time trying to focus on these very tiny nano entrepreneurs. And more of those we have, the better off we are likely to be.
And what is the policy support that we need to encourage these nano entrepreneurs?
Of course, government can really help these very small businesses. I think these businesses that I'm referring to tend to be in the no man's land in some sense. They're not, they fall through the cracks in the sense that a lot of the small businesses the government has schemes for very, very tiny businesses, loans and other grants, and also for the SMEs. But for the 25, 30, 50 lakh businesses, I think we need a real incentive for banks and other people and credit institutions to lend to them. Hopefully account aggregators, once it starts to become a big way to go, maybe there is an opportunity there. But government some of the paperwork and the processes that people have for GST and others are fairly onerous for very tiny businesses. And if you are trying to put things on a online platform like an Amazon or others, the margins that are available and get distributed are not exactly fair for the very small businesses. So there are lots of these challenges, and there is a lack of understanding and education for these small businesses as well. They don't know what to do and what all is available to them.
So if I just zoom out and take a larger lens and look at the startup ecosystem, India is home to the third largest ecosystem in the world, startup ecosystem. You know, when you started off, you started Persistent in 1990. At that time, everyone was focused on, earning a salary. If you were the smart ones, you wanted to go abroad, lived in the developed economy. But now we have startups mushrooming, and they are an essential lever, an essential growth driver of India. How do you see the startup climate different? And what can it do in the next 10 years?
So I'm absolutely very excited about the large numbers of startups that have started to happen. I think because we have large number of startups, many of them will now feel like they want to make this bigger. I think a lot of startups require an ecosystem to happen. So when I started Persistent in 1990, the entire IT industry was, as I said, was less than $30 million for the entire country. Right now it's nearly $300 billion. So a lot of this learning that we have seen has happened through an ecosystem of working with each other, helping each other. And as many startups start to happen, I think the village, in some sense, the knowledge of how to build a startup will start to get better. But what I want to point out is that while startups, as are defined by sort of the government thing, they're just one class of entrepreneurs. And the ones that I'm working on the nano entrepreneurship side, they don't necessarily get classified as that. They're not equity-driven businesses. They're lifestyle businesses in some sense. And we need lots of those as well. And finally, I would like to say that while we have a large number of startups, I would like to see at least some of these startups be focusing on deep technology or doing research so that we can push the envelope in the other direction as well, where we can get good quality work happening and next generation of products being sold across the world.
So talking about leapfrogging India into that $10 trillion economy, it's a lot about the demographic, harnessing India's demographic dividend.
Correct.
You know, when we speak to companies, they tell us, well, it's hard to get the right talent.
Yes.
And when you go outside an engineering college and you meet engineers and they will say, it's hard to get a job. So you've got a demand, you've got a supply, but somehow it's not mismatched. There is a mismatch. The skills are not getting matched. So employability of our youth, the right employability, is an important topic. And this is something that needs to be addressed. What are your thoughts on it?
Yes, I think this is a huge problem. I think we have a large number of very young people. And the other challenge we have, as you would all appreciate, is that technology is moving so fast that whatever you learn in college will not last very long. So clearly we need to move to a world where, one, we need to be learning all the time. So continuous learning is going to be the key to success. And that cannot just happen in colleges, but need to happen in colleges beyond the 4 years that typically people are in college. So colleges need to move to a situation where they are providing education for life in one side. On the other hand, I think we need to provide individuals in colleges some practical information about how to feel comfortable about making your own living in some sense. I believe that in the next 5 to 7 years, we are heading into a gig economy in some sense, where individuals will have the opportunity to have multiple different activities, jobs at the same time concurrently. And this is going to require very different kinds of thinking, because your paycheck will not happen at the end of every month, but will happen at the completion of a gig. So that would change the demographics and how working might change. And it is going to be very interesting next few years, but we have some challenges which we need to address now so that we have a chance of succeeding in this economy.
And you know, talking about technology, I want to understand from you the role it can play in bridging the inequality, the income inequality.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, as you would appreciate in India right now, we have people across the country where people speak in different languages, and we have a definite gap between sort of primary education, secondary education, high-level education, and all kinds of skills. So there's a lot we want to learn, and it would be very hard to find all the teachers that we need to find, or doctors in other cases as well, but it is very hard to find people who can help this to happen. And here's where I think technology can be very valuable. Look at artificial intelligence and some of the other things that are available today. Technology through the cell phone and the wireless setup, and now with next generation of AI going on to it, I think everyone now has access to technology and access to education in some sense. How well our youth uses our time to learn new things is going to be the key to our success in some sense.
And what would your advice be? We are wasting all our time on social media. Not we, I mean the youth.
So again, you know, I think we have to learn through all these kinds of things. I think a lot of what happens in our future depends on the peers that we hang out with, the other kids that are with us. So I think if we can motivate groups of people to believe that while they are doing some of the social media stuff or being on cell phones, there's a lot of new things that they could be learning. And if we can show success of individuals who sort of build their own gigs in some sense and are successful doing it, I think more and more people will be inspired to spend their time learning new things on an ongoing basis. And there's so much to learn right now, and it is so easily available to everyone that I think we are in a golden age in some sense, where we have access to things that we have never imagined before would be possible.
You know, so typically we always start top down, but this time we've started our conversation with many building blocks,
yes,
whether it's employability, whether it's entrepreneurs, particularly the nano entrepreneurs. So now I want you to give a top down view. If you, in your opinion, if we have to make this decade India's decade, what all do we need?
So again, yes, on the bottom up, I think the reality is that we do have a large number of individuals in our population. We have a demographic where, as was mentioned already, that we have more than 70% people in the working age group. And it is kind of not realistic to expect that all these will get jobs top down. So on the bottom up, we need to empower every individual to believe that they can create their own work. And to do that, they need to understand that they need to get some basic skills. In addition to that, they also need to get some, funding, foundational stuff and other things. So if we could create policies that enable small businesses to succeed, that would be one end of the equation. On the other side of it, I would recommend that, yes, the normal things will happen. We must invest in infrastructure and various other things. But one specific thing that I would add on to is the need to invest in research. So if you think about the next few years in the technology landscape or the biotechnology or bioeconomy landscape that I've been dabbling on for the last few years, I think we have some amazing opportunities of where India can be the leader for technology roadmaps in the future. And unless we put our effort in it, we'll not get there.
Give us an example where India can be a leader. We've already shown our leadership when it comes to software outsourcing.
Yes. So, of course, software is one area for sure, because I think we are all in the new AI age, and I think we have the largest number of people who understand how to use and work with AI. AI can be a great productivity booster, and I think we can all work together on that. I'm also very upbeat on the changes that are happening in the synthetic engineering or gene engineering area, where I believe that the advances that we have seen in science in the last 5 years specifically have made it possible for us to engineer food, water, plants, drugs in very different kinds of ways. And they will have an impact on the way the world is going to eat and live and various other things, including climate control and all that. If we need to succeed on those areas, we need our next generation biology to kick in. And here, I think we are at the same level as many other countries in the world. And I think if we put the right investments in the next few years, we have the opportunity to be there. We just have the large numbers of good people at every level. And I think if we can put them to directions that are leapfrogging or breaking the path in some sense, I think we would have a great opportunity.
So in a nutshell, you're saying that bioeconomy is in the same place that software was in the 1990s?
Yeah, I would think so. I think, yes, I think that is correct from India point of view, but I think it's true. See, the difference is that in 1990s, software economy in the US was already way ahead. But if you look at 2024 now, yes, we are where bioeconomy is where it was for India. But I think the good thing is that we are not that far behind the US in bioeconomy as we were in the tech economy at that point.
Anand, thank you very much for joining in. Pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
I would request Mr. Ranbir Singh Dhariwal, CEO, Max Life Pension Fund Management, to come up on stage and felicitate Mr. Deshpande with a souvenir courtesy, Yes, Private. Thank you, both of you, for such a wonderful conversation, very insightful, and also somehow it's making me very nervous because I have a panel coming up and all the panelists have already spoken so beautifully about the growth mindset, and but we'll be talking shortly about MSMEs and SMEs and how we should be pivoting from where they are at the moment. But moving ahead, with this spirit of innovation and to further unravel India's future growth potential, it's time for another quick fireside chat on investing today in tomorrow's growth. And to moderate this chat, may I request Lata Venkatesh from CNBC-TV18 to please come on stage. And joining Lata would be a leader with a career spanning over 4 decades who has spearheaded multiple leadership positions across the power sector value chain in his current role as the CEO and Managing Director of one of India's oldest and largest integrated power utilities. He has been instrumental in transforming a century-old power utility company into a new age, sustainable, technology-oriented, customer-centric, green energy solutions company. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Praveer Sinha, CEO and MD, Tata Power. So Lata and Praveer will be shortly here. I think off the table conversation is happening right outside because both of them are not here. Should have them shortly here.
Mr. Praveer Sinha needs no introduction, has made Tata Power a power to reckon with, a 1 lakh crore company now, like many of the other Tata Group companies. But let's concentrate more on power in this discussion of our movement towards a 10 trillion economy. I mean, power is absolutely the basic thing that India has to get right. And you'll have to admit that some very basic steps have been taken from the time of independence. To give credit where it's due, the Tatas were the first to think about power. Heidelberg, the first Heidelberg power station in the country, coming up near Mumbai to charge the textile mills. And thereafter, the government of India, after freedom, taking, Bhakra Nangal, Hirakud project, all those massive projects, the new temples, or what temples of New India. So we started off on a track, but where we seem to have lost our way is our inability to respect the importance of the contract. I mean, a distribution company takes power from the power generator on the promise of payment and doesn't pay. So the contract is abrogated or violated there. The DISCOM is violating because the government, the state government which has promised a subsidy has not paid. There are places where there are local Bahubalis who have captured a certain area and do not, just demand free power and get it. So everywhere the contract was violated, and that led to the whole power sector getting mired. We have to clean that up if we have to get to the 10 trillion economy. It is as basic as Jan Dhan and a telephone for everyone. We have to reach power, and for that, we have to clean up these alleyways of payments. So let me start over there, Mr. Praveer Sinha. We've seen some very good progress in terms of the late payment surcharge. So that's apparently brought down some of the DISCOM dues. Likewise, you can't access IEX or the power exchange. Now, would you say that we are at least halfway through in terms of cleaning up the DISCOM problem?
First of all, thank you, Lata, and thank you, HS. Thank you to Yes Bank and to CNBC for the opportunity. I think the power sector has transformed a lot in the last 20 years, whether we see in terms of the capacity addition. Every 10 years, the capacity has doubled in the country. 2000, we were about 100 gigawatt. 2010, we became 200, and today we are more than 430 gigawatts. So I think every 10 years, there has been a huge transition. And the distribution has been the weakest link in the power sector. The generation companies have done well, the transmission, but it is in the distribution where all the cash is collected. And that's where the challenge is, that many a times, because of political pull and pressure, the DISCOMs are not able to do well because one is that they don't get subsidy on time. Secondly, there has been general apathy in the distribution sector. There has been corruption. There has been also a lot of theft of electricity that takes place. And I think because of all these reasons, the DISCOM's financial health has been very bad. It was the cumulative losses of all the DISCOMs put together was something like 5 lakh crore, and it keeps on adding every year. And while number of steps have been taken in last 5 years, we still have a long way to go, whereby we give the freedom of the consumers to decide with whom they would like to purchase power or who should be the service provided, like in telecom or in any other sector it is there. So those changes have to happen. If you remember last year, the government was very keen, the union government was talking about the amendment to the Electricity Act, whereby you can have multiple suppliers. So I think a lot of changes have happened, but there is a lot that is required. And if we have to really become a 10 trillion economy and more, then the power sector reforms have to happen, because power is very, very important and critical that it reaches everyone, whether it is in urban areas, for industries, for commercial, or in rural areas, because everyone today requires power for their consumption, and it has to be affordable. It is not something that people can pay any amount of money. So it's very, very important that affordable power has to be provided to all types of consumer. And this is one big reform which is still waiting to happen. I do hope that after the elections we will have an Electricity Act amendment whereby the distribution sector will be opened for multiple players, including private players from India and outside India. And we may provide the universal access of power 24/7 everywhere in the country.
Well, that's well spoken. It's just an old habit as a banking reporter to start with the banking or the lending borrowing problem. I really wanted to start with the excellent budget announcements. Now, like in telecom, we were ridden with, the black telephone, and you stood for long lines. You applied for a telephone in the 90s also, and then you got the telephone 5 years later, 10 years later, probably after paying a bribe. The whole thing was solved by technology. The cell phone came and we cleaned up. Do you think this brilliant announcement in the budget that the government is going for solar rooftops for 1 crore homes, and some amount has already been set aside in the FY25 budget, you think that is an answer? You all are in solar power, rooftop solar yourself. Do you think this is a stepping stone to getting rid of the DISCOM problem, because this is almost like a cell phone? You have the rooftop solar, so there is no intermediary of a DISCOM. Is this an answer?
I don't think this is the only answer. And just to put it in perspective, while it will go and do rooftop for 1 crore homes, we have actually 26 crore homes in the country. So there are 26 crore consumers who are there in the country, and we need to reach out to all of them. While it is a very good step, especially to small consumers, residential consumers of 2, 3, 4, 5 kilowatt, who will get opportunity to light up their homes and also empower them, whereby they can produce power, they can use it themselves, give it in the grid, and thereby become a net earner of money, revenue for themselves. So I think it's a very good starting step, but much more needs to be done, and it is not the panacea for all the challenges which is there in the power sector. But I think somewhere you need to start, and it's really a welcome move from the government.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that we are not yet informed on how it will be fleshed out. It's an announcement at the budget, and the new government will come in only in perhaps mid-May, and we will know who is our new power minister only perhaps by the first week of June. So clearly it's only then that we will get, but it just seems like it can be an answer out of the DISCOM mess. Now, speaking of which, solar in general, Mr. Sinha, we were discussing before we came in, there are say technology mavericks on power who say that you can have window panes which are solar panels. You can have new buildings which are constructed in such a way that they consume less energy because they're generating electricity. How far is this technology? Will we, now every building in Mumbai ought to have water harvesting. Will we at some point in time have every building having enough solar panels so you're not depending on the grid? Is that feasible?
So first of all, I think there has been very good penetration of solar energy in the country. Now, we started very small. 2015 we were just 5 gigawatt of solar, and now today we have nearly 70 gigawatt. So it has been a rapid increase in solarization that has taken place in the country, and much more has to happen. In fact, the ambitious plan that by 2030 we'll have 500 gigawatt, out of which nearly 250 will be actually coming out of solar, because most parts of the country we have more than 300 days of sunshine. So I think solar will play a it's actually the new oil for India, and it will play a very, very important role going forward. Now, coming to new applications, new technologies, it's not just the photovoltaic, there are thin films, there are organic materials, there are peroxides. So I think many of the new technologies which are coming, you don't need to have a substrate like glass or substrate which are materials which are heavy material. You can do it on a plastic sheet, and you can paste it on the wall or paste it on your glass sheets on the window pane. So there are new applications, new technologies which are coming. There are also new technologies coming whereby these energies can be stored. It is not that it is only during daytime you have solar, so you can store it whether it is in battery storage or it can be pumps hydro storage. And so I think the days when we will have 24/7 renewable will definitely happen. It may take time because some of the new technologies are still getting developed, and also they need to be cost effective, because power is one where it cannot be freely priced in the market. It is something which has to be very, very regulated and very controlled, because you have all types of consumers who require this, and the affordability will be a very important aspect in the consumption and growth of power sector. So I think the new changes, the new technologies and the cutting edge work that is happening globally, many of them we will start seeing in next 5 to 7 years.
Okay. I'm coming to the time element in just a minute. Let me discuss another element for which Tata Power has become famous, or maybe it needs to become more famous, the microgrid. Can you tell us what has been Tata Power's experience? Maybe you even need to tell all of us how exactly this microgrid works and how much can it be scaled up?
So microgrids are basically off-grid solutions which typically consist of solar modules. It consists of storage batteries, and as a backup we started initially with DG sets because in the night time when you don't have either the solar or you don't have the battery storage, then you have the DG set. But this is not the best of the solutions. Now some of the solutions using bio-CNG has been developed. And what we are looking at is how do we scale this up. India has 600,000 villages, sub-Sahara, 49 countries have huge number of areas where universal access of energy is not there. And the whole objective is that how do we take this energy in an affordable manner and in a scalable manner. What we have seen over a period of time is that when you bring power, and our experience in India where we have put 200 of them, is that when you bring power, you actually develop the micro enterprise over there. We have seen atta chakkis now working from 8 to 8 or 8 to 10 also in the night. You have seen oil expellers, you have seen many of the shops which are there, whether it is the dispensary.
So the productivity of the town goes up.
So the productivity of the town and alternate employment opportunity comes. So it's actually a driver of economic activities in villages. And if we can really bring a financially viable solution which sustain on its own, because if it is not sustainable, then what happens is you can do 100, 200, 500, 1,000, 10,000 based on some CSR grant, but it cannot be scaled up in the numbers that we are looking at.
26 crore homes.
Yeah, so 6 lakh villages. So that's the type of penetration it can have. So I think this is a very, very ambitious program that we are working in Tata Power along with some of our partners from MIT and some of the other institutions globally. We feel that we should be able to crack this, and this can become a great example of how we can provide a solution which can bring about the economic prosperity in rural areas.
Now let me come to the time element. You have spoken about several technological developments which, if scaled up, can really solve solve the problem which thermal couldn't solve. You spoke about solar panels, you spoke about rooftop solar panels, solar energy, and you have spoken about microgrids. How would you say is the time frame? We are speaking about India as a Viksit, as a developed country by 2047, and perhaps a 10 trillion economy much earlier than that. How much time would you give for all these technologies to bear fruition and electrify the country economically?
I think the government itself has talked that 50% of the energy by 2030 will come from clean energy sources. And I'm quite bullish about it that this should be possible, if not 100% of 500 gigawatt coming. It may happen at least to a very large extent. The second thing is that how do we make this power not intermittent but continuous power, and that's where I think some of the technologies which is happening, and which includes not only the storage technology, but also alternate technologies in SMRs, which is the small modular reactors for nuclear reactors, and some of the other technologies in storage that are being developed. Hopefully in next 5 to 7 years, they may see the light of the day. And I do believe that the type of work that is happening, the cutting edge technology work that is happening globally, and there is a deep amount of seriousness with which people are working. This will happen by the end of this decade. We'll have multiple good clean energy solutions available globally as also in our country.
Well, that's such a nice thing to hear. I mean, end of the decade is not all that far away. We'll live to see it. Unlike perhaps, 2040 or 2070 when we are, supposed to completely get to net zero. This looks so much more achievable. Just one final question. Tell us about the story of Tata Power itself. I mean, what made, if you, I assume that you would know the story. What made Jamshedji Tata think of Tata Power that early? 109 years. 109 years ago. What sparked that? And now, how is it that you're so correctly, timely thought of moving from thermal to solar? I mean, that also seemed to be ahead of the times. Suddenly ESG is upon us and, coal is a dirty word. But how did you all presage it?
So this is a very interesting story. Way back in 1900, Jamshedji Tata used to stay in Mumbai city, and we had all these textile mills which were there in Parel area, and they used to use coal at that time for the textile mills and for boiling water and using it for bleaching purpose. And he saw the smoke in the Mumbai city, and he said that I need to find out a solution which brings in clean energy. And that's how he went around and saw that there are a lot of areas in which water can be collected, and the various plants which came up, which was the Khapoli plant or the Bhivpuri plant or the Bhira plant, have all water reservoirs in the catchment area of Western Ghats. And the power was produced in 1915, the first plant, the second in 1921, and the third in 1927. And the challenge, of course, was to how do you bring that power, because Bombay being an island, how do you bring the transmission of power to? But I think now what he at that time thought, and I'm told that this was based on a voyage that he took along with Swami Vivekananda, where he said that if a growth of a country, you need to produce clean power, you need to produce affordable power, and you need to produce abundant power if the country has to grow. So I think we had people like Vivekananda and Jamshedji Tata who were really visionaries, and they showed us the way, and we continue to follow that path.
Okay. I think this deserves a round of applause. It's a fascinating story. We do need technology, we do need money, we do need these solutions, but ultimately we need visionaries. We need people who can think so far ahead. So may there be 1,000 leaders, may there be tens of thousands of leaders, both in corporate India and in the districts and states, who are able to charge up and organize the country into a new paradigm for the 10 trillion and beyond. Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
For a very inspiring conversation.
Thank you very much, Lata.
Please to stay back on the stage, sir. A photo op, and thank you so much for that very insightful, delightful, candid conversation. Thank you so much. And may I request Mr. Prashant Kumar to please come up on stage and felicitate Dr. Praveer with a souvenir, courtesy Yes Private. Well, India's path towards achieving economic prowess demands efforts on multiple fronts. However, the most fundamental aspect of driving this change lies in ideas that possess the power to transform the entire economic landscape. The next panel discussion is about these ideas and perspectives that aim to foster India's economic development and also help build a growth mindset. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my fellow panelists for the discussion. Neeraj Jain, co-founder Solar Square Energy. Shailesh Dhuri, CEO Decimal Point Analytics. And Sanjeev Prabhu, MD Lismont Engines. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
This is the panel I was talking about, that everyone who spoke before us has done such a beautiful job of already pointing out what are the needs, what are the challenges, a SWOT analysis of sorts of what is happening in the industry, in Indian economy, while we stay very robust and while we are very hopeful and we are also resilient, but we are talking about a larger picture where we have more potential and how to harness that, how to scale our businesses, etc. And we are also talking about a growth mindset. Now, that's a word that is typically thrown at us at every town hall, board meeting. Growth mindset hona chahiye, right? But what is growth mindset? A lot of people wonder. I mean, you know, there are some of those words that we very fancily use, agility, resilience in business. But a lot of times, one needs to actually break that down to understand what exactly is growth mindset. So first, may I start with you? Is there something called a growth mindset? How is it developed? Are people involved in developing it? Is work culture involved? What is it that takes to build a great growth mindset?
It's a very intelligent question.
I know.
And actually, I come from a blue-collar industry. We run a business which is into industrial furnaces. So I deal with workers, technicians, supervisors, engineers, and a different mindset.
True.
When I started my career 35 years back, a refinery used to be built in, say, 5 to 6 years. Now it's built in 2 years. So when you're talking of growth mindset, it's just about that change. Is it possible? So it starts with that very fact that we have to be agile. We have to be ready to understand that you have to think out of the box. Now is the time where, because of internet, because of knowledge which has changed from what probably we grew up as young engineers, information is available, technology is available. So are we willing to change? So I've seen a big change in my industry where, say, post-COVID, you know, we are refractory contractors for all industries.
Right.
So there was no such thing as one contractor being available for operation and maintenance. You had an electrical contractor, mechanical, civil, all such contractors maintaining a plant. Now what happened in COVID was that people were not available to come, and therefore the maintenance of the plants suffered. And there came this new idea, do we have one company who can handle all of this? As a company, we saw that. So again, we're talking about growth mindset, risk and reward. We understood the risks is collecting people, getting all the knowledge on one side, and the reward is there. And today we are handling at least 3-4 companies, we are handling plants. So growth mindset is absolutely, first of all, it comes from within. And then, of course, it's all about coaching. There are a lot of coaching available to allow you to think differently.
Wonderful. Before we move ahead, we also have another member joining us on the panel. Mr. Javeri. All right, Riddhi Javeri is joining us. She was right here. Riddhi. Welcome, Riddhi. Please come.
Not Mr.
Not at all. All right, we were talking about the growth mindset, Riddhi, and now that you are here, we will put the question to you, which is, do you really think we need coaching in developing a growth mindset? And when we especially talk about SMEs and MSMEs, there is a lot of upskilling that needs to be done for them to scale up, for them to pivot from where they are. How then can they develop this agility?
Absolutely. I think we are talking about this 10 trillion economy dream, which is absolutely doable. And that is going to come from a growth mindset, right? That's the fundamental. And that is going to not only come from the big companies that are driving the growth in India, but also from the SMEs, be it the small companies or the large companies. This growth mindset is what is going to drive the economy going forward. And if we have to reach from 3.7 to 10, that's what's going to drive. And like you rightly said, coaching is key in this. And especially in companies of our size, you know, we see that there is apprehension to innovation. There is apprehension to invest in innovation.
Right.
You know, to break that mindset of conventional way of doing things. How do we improve? That coaching has to be given to everybody top down in the organization. I think that's going to be very critical.
Intern laboratories, what is the vision there, and how do you interact with the large audience?
So we're into pharmaceutical manufacturing, right? It is the epicenter of growth within the country. COVID has shown the world that our industry has given medicines to almost every country in the world. It's really about now driving the growth with research and development.
Right.
I think India has been very strong in developing the raw materials, the generic APIs, but where we now need to go is to not do just incremental innovation, but to go for, you know, inventing drugs, inventing new products, which are recognized, which are accepted, and which are rewarded. Right? So that is the agenda going forward for our company. Of course, it's going to take a huge journey, but at least in our company, it's like any kind of innovation, but one innovation a year. That's what we need to build that step by step.
Neeraj, with both pharma and with both your industry, solar, we have seen that what was initially believed to have taken a lot of time to scale up has been expedited in the last 4 or 5 years. What has the journey been for you in terms of scaling your business? It's a very fascinating story of founders coming from IIT Mumbai and coming together and building this huge business. What has your experience been in terms of what is now available that is pushing the businesses to scale up, which wasn't available back in the days?
It's a very interesting question, and I'm going to try to speak to the SMEs, founders who are sitting in the back as a fellow SME myself. And I'm probably the youngest in the group here. My apologies, but...
You didn't look this side at all.
But yeah, I'll just speak from my experience in terms of, you know, what does growth mindset look like in action? And the panelist before me, Dr. Sinha from Tata Power, he's my biggest competitor. He described the market size, 26 crore homes. And that is what I'm doing. I'm taking a power plant to these 26 crore homes. And in the history of mankind, this has not happened before, that a homeowner has owned a power plant.
Right.
And what we've been able to do in the last 3 years, we are already probably 50-55% of where Tata Power has reached in the last 3 decades. What we've done as an SME, we found our niche, and in the first 5 years of our journey, we built a profitable, bootstrap, 100 crore company, and we left it behind when we saw our niche that nobody else in this country, at least no organized large industrial house, is going to build for homes. It's very difficult. And what do we do there? So I'll just take 2 minutes to give a background of what that growth mindset looks like. So My average consumer is a middle class homeowner with 10 lakh rupees of family income annually. And this family is going to buy a 2.5 lakh rupee solar plant for their home. This plant, everything paid upfront. The first problem we hit was there are such few companies and products that this homeowner has bought in his life for this ticket size. And for that you need the trust of a Maruti, of a Tata, of a Bajaj. So we built the best home solar product out there. Then the challenge was, how do you actually deliver on that trust? And how do you sell quality? You know, the market is flooded with low quality, low cost competitors. So we looked for inspiration in a equally boring industry, Michelin tires, you know, they were innovating in the industry. Globally, Michelin was struggling because they were competing against Chinese manufacturers who were undercutting on cost and quality. Michelin just flipped the game. Michelin said, my tires probably run for 50% more at 5% extra cost. I'm going to charge people not for the tire, but for every kilometer. That's what Solar Square did. Rather than charging for the solar plant, now we are charging people for power. Now, how do I do that? It basically made me the largest, it gave us the largest portfolio of power plants in India. Like we are now operating 10,000 power plants across the country. Nobody is doing that in the country. So we look for inspiration from Airbnb, which is, they don't own a single room, but they are the largest vacation stays builder out there. So I think just taking those bold bets out there is probably how that innovation and growth mindset looks like in action.
Wonderful. Big round of applause for that growth mindset in action that we are seeing. Shailesh, I was reading one of your articles, and you write beautifully. And something that struck me, and because, you know, Rohan Bopan also spoke about the 10,000 hours. Yes. And I read something which said 10,000 hours hai, lekin usko dheere dheere kharch karna chahiye. You know, you should be spending those 10,000 hours cautiously. And something that stood out was, do not go into hyper specialization.
Yes.
I'm fascinated by these two things that you spoke about. How can this be related with a growth mindset?
Yes. So I will get example of Rohan only. So Rohan mentioned that he became #1 at the age of 43 by taking the modern medicine and using Iyengar yoga. Had he gone hyper specialization and only focused on the modern medicine, he wouldn't have become #1. Had he just focused on Iyengar yoga, he wouldn't have become #1. See, I run a AI focused company. I run an AI focused company, right. But for the growth path of India, we need to have both the modern technology as well as the wisdom that is there locally put together. And for growth mindset, we need to change certain things in the education system. Our system is such that you should get answer right. That means somebody else should know the answer. That is only when you get the answer right. But if you have growth mindset, nobody knows the answer. That means you are doing trial and error. That means you will fail. And we teach students not to fail. So that needs to change. So this is the reason we need not hyper specialize. The moment you hyper specialize, you become narrow focused. You look at success in that area. For a country of our size, we require people who can think widely.
Let me take the thread forward from there and talk about what do SMEs and MSMEs need at the moment? While we have these challenges with upskilling, etc., when we are talking about growth mindset, we are also talking about these companies to think about what is happening in the world when it comes to tech, Gen AI, data mining, and as one of the panelists before said that, you know, data, of course, is the new one. He also said solar is the new oil in India, is the new currency. But all of this comes at a cost. And a lot of times, SMEs and MSMEs are not able to bear that cost, which is why they cannot scale up. Credit access is another big issue. When you see SMEs and MSMEs, how do you think when we are talking about all of these latest technologies and changing processes and innovating, what are some of the things that can be done to support them?
Yeah, so on the credit access, I think last 8-9 years, the government has done quite a bit. to increase the amount of credit access. Now, once the credit is available, for the companies, especially the senior management, needs to change the mindset. Look at the areas where the money is stuck and get the money out. And you need to benchmark yourself to the best in the class. See, we feel proud that India is IT capital of the world. Our export is $300 billion. We employ 4 crore people. But number 2 exporter is Israel, 150 billion and 4 lakh people. So that is, and this applies to everything, not only to IT, even to tomato exports. Our tomato productivity is 1/20th of Netherlands, which is a very cold country. So lot of efficiency gains can be had by just looking at your processes, your systems, and increasing your profitability without investing too much, because somebody else has already traveled that path. You just need to figure out who has traveled that path. And there has been saying that people are wasting time on social media. Actually, if you go and search on social media, many solutions that other people have implemented, you find that, and you can easily implement.
Sanjeev, Lisbon Tangents is a legacy brand since 1978. Their presence in turnkey services has been world-renowned. You're in India since 2010. What is the mindset that you see with SMEs and MSMEs that you're interacting with in the country that is different from that of the outer world where you have other clients? And how do we sort of change that with support from a company like yours?
We are living that journey day in and day out. I come from a background where I worked for the biggest companies like Larsen & Toubro, Punj Lloyd. When I started this company in 2010, our focus was only refractories, because globally we are known to be experts in that field for all industrial furnaces. But one of the big things that we found is Indian mindset of the clients is throwing challenges. So turnaround time, productivity cost, how do you lower it? These are the buzzwords that each client keeps throwing at us. And the only thing that we, probably because we have a lot of engineers, and engineers can think logically, as he rightly said, we used to Google and find out what is that somebody is doing different. For instance, in the aluminum industry, when a aluminum pot goes down, for every day, it's money, 2.5 tons into $100 is the cost. So we started a contract way back in 2013 at 13 days for a pot. Today we do it under 6 days. So what did we do different? We went and searched abroad in our group companies, and we found that we have a robo which can go inside and do major part of dismantling the old refractories, which are at a temperature 150. So I think these are the things, when you talk about growth mindset, is the adaptability.
Correct.
If you ask me 10 years back, I would go with what I learned for 25 years. But had I not changed, somebody else would take up the contract. So necessity is the mother of invention. And we brought in all these things. So there are various examples what we did. Now currently we are looking at, I had to take around 100 odd engineers. That's my plan, because we are growing at 3x and 4x speed. Interestingly, this batch which came out last year was spending 2 years in COVID.
Yeah.
So we went to around 26 colleges across the country, because we work pan-India. And one thing we found, that the engineers who were coming out just did not know the basic questions, because they didn't open the books at all. So what do? We went and turned around the interview and said, looked at abilities, looked at what you want to see differently, what you want to do in life. These are the questions which we as engineers, we came out, were never told. You need a job, you get a salary, that's it. But when we started doing that, we also hired an HR company. We are doing basic skill training. How to present, how to behave in front of the client. All that has been given to this batch. And I'm telling you, they're turning out to be better than some of my old supervisors. Because they don't have that mindset. Aise hi chala hai, aise hi hoga. But these young engineers are bringing about change. So another thing we have opened up is suggestions. So these young boys are giving suggestions which we could not think of. So That's all available. The talent is available.
Right.
I think we have to go ahead and empower them and allow them to think. I think that's the secret.
How important is taking feedback from this generation?
Absolutely. I mean, you have touched it. I have this batch, so I decided that I must talk to them one-on-one. So I have a WhatsApp group, which is great. So there only my HR head and me are on that group. And we have encouraged them to talk about the problems they are facing, about what they need to learn better. Is the training been given what was told? And amazingly, because there's nobody else from whom they are reporting, they are open in talking. So had I included my managers, which is typically the other WhatsApp group, which is for project management, there you see the same boys don't talk. So it's a platform in which you give them, they allow. And then we use that very diligently, because we don't want to hurt my senior supervisors or engineers who have 20 years experience, but have not seen the human handling part. That's very critical in any organization, and we are facing this. Because we are growing at 3x speed. So we have 700 employees, 300 are new. So how do you gel that? It's very important that communication, we have heard it previously, how to talk transparently, that becomes a very key point.
So growth mindset, as you rightly put, is also about the right people management, honing skills, and of course understanding what this generation is coming with, who are you working with, what are their own aspirations when they come to you and work for you and to work for themselves. To both of you, and I'll start with you, Neeraj, you know, a lot of times we are, you know, I'm just quoting my panelists who came here before, you know, there is legislation before innovation, Siddharth, I think, mentioned that. There are so many versions of India within India when we talk about regulatory frameworks, right? Because you may be working in one city with a different set of state regulations. When you go to another city, it completely changes. And both of you are working in ecosystems where a lot of this regulatory framework needs to be understood, needs to be followed. How difficult or easy is it then to navigate your way through this from your experience going to, of course, the experiences of new companies, MSMEs and SMEs?
So, I had a ringside view to this 1 crore home PM Suryodaya Yojana that was announced just last week. And I'll be very candid, I'm politically incorrect. I didn't vote for this government in the last election. But my God, they won my vote this time. And not because it was favorable to my industry, but they were consulting companies, startups like us. They were willing to accept ideas which were not, like these bureaucrats, 55, 60-year-old, they're willing to accept different ideas which were against their own notion. And the push was coming from the top. Very honestly, the push was coming from the top. Ye karke dikhao. And suddenly the whole machinery, cross-function, I think somebody in the first panel referred to interministerial collaboration. I saw that happen, yeah, I think it was something, it made me hopeful about our country. So I think everything else be damned. I think there is a lot of hope. I think just getting new blood into the government also is going to help us a lot. But yeah, good days are ahead. And I was not paid for this insert.
Priti, I'll give you the last word on this. When we are talking about now following things like sustainability, we have lofty goals for 2030, we are looking at carbon emissions, we are looking at a lot of ESG reportage. Amidst all of that is technology that is moving at a pace where it's very hard to keep up with a business idea that came to your mind and suddenly that has been already taken by a Gen AI startup or alike. How does one stay ahead of times? How much R&D is required? And in the times to come, what are companies that are going to survive?
That's a very pertinent question because especially for companies of our size, right? If there is a thought of innovation or any new way of doing things, either it's already adapted by somebody else or a larger company is going to lap it up. So we have to be in constant awareness and look out for new ways of doing things. And like you rightly pointed out, sustainability, green tech, etc. is the future. And for example, in our company, we are the first company in India to implement something called a continuous manufacturing process for a particular dosage form of formulation, pharmaceutical formulation, which nobody else in India has implemented, and I don't think even in some of the other countries. But this was ahead of time thinking. We didn't need to do it, but we did it with the goal of making ourselves more price competitive, streamlining the process, and at the same time make the process more sustainable and reduce water consumption, reduce power consumption, right? So when we actually scale up this technology, we will be in a very good position to, supply the product not only in India but across the world. So it's just about, sometimes it's luck as well, to be honest, but it's really honing that idea and really persevering it to see its fruition. Of course, there were a lot of challenges and failures in the journey, but I think really persevering to see the fruition of that idea is going to be critical for companies like us. And then, of course, there will be other companies that will adapt it along the way, but at least, you've brought that to the industry.
Wonderful. On that note, my time's up. The time also says that, but thank you so much for your time and your patience and for the wonderful insights. Maybe please come for a photo op.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And may I also request Mr. Rajan Pental, Executive Director, Yes Bank, to please come up on stage to felicitate the panelists with a souvenir, courtesy Yes Private. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have now something that is very intriguing, very interesting, by someone known as India's brain enhancer. All right, he's the founder of NeuroLeap, India's leading applied neuroscience company that leverages brain-computer interface technology for better mental health and brain enhancement. Alongside this, his impeccable public speaking abilities have led him to represent India at global stages, particularly the G20 summit back in 2016 and 17. Please put your hands together for leading neuroscientist Kumar Bagrodia, founder, NeuroLeap.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Yes Bank and CNBC, for inviting me here. I'm going to talk about the neuroscience of growth. A quick show of hands. What is the first precursor for growth? We've been using that word. The mind. Anybody else? Aspiration. Great. Dreams. Fantastic. So what you all have just said is vision. And I'm going to come back to that. But can anyone recognize anything in this picture? What's going on with these wires? Of course, but this is the epitome of neuroscience right here at the Olympics. Each of these wires actually measure in milliseconds, that is 1,000th of a second, between the start being given, the gun being fired, and the athlete pushing off. Even if the athlete starts after the gunfire, but it is within 1/10 of a second, it is a false start. Because it is assumed that in 1/10 of a second, you cannot consciously absorb the light and the sound of the start and fire up your muscles to react and start. So if you have started within 1/10 of a second, which is 100 milliseconds, then it is a false start. It happened at your subconscious level, not a conscious start. So to me, that is the epitome of neuroscience in real life and high performance. So imagine that athlete, he has to be doing it just right. Just right. We spoke about vision. In my mind, as a neuroscientist, growth is about vision and decision making. So you set your dreams, goals, mission statement, vision, and then all the decision making over the years, every minute, every day to achieve that. And I'm going to delve a little deeper into vision. Let me say that on the left side, you've got what you're actually made of. Your culture, values, childhood, upbringing, your habits, your stereotypes, society, all the cognitive shortcuts you've accumulated over the years. That's what makes you you. And on the other hand, you've got what's impacting you in that minute. What is the trigger for the vision? Is the vision a vision for the country? Is it a vision for your company, for your bank, for your organization? What is the trigger? Are you starting that exercise because of a crisis? Are you starting that exercise? We heard just in the previous panel some amazing entrepreneurial journeys. Was it a problem-solve approach? What was the trigger for that vision? The people around you. No, and I don't mean that from an HR perspective. But are the people around you rallying for you? Are they, naysayers? Are they saying, oh yeah, this is fantastic? What's going on? The physical environment. Literally, it boils down to the room you're in. The temperature, the smell, the noise. And honestly, the noise in the system. The public, policies, market forces, all of that is what's impacting you in the current. But unknowingly to us, all of these factors on the screen are making you state a certain vision, your background and the current environment. Decision making. So we said the second part of growth is decision making then. Your brain is a decision-making machine. That's all it does. And I'll tell you why. So do we agree? We've all seen, we are at a CNBC event, the efficient markets hypothesis that human beings are perfectly rational. Anybody here who believes that human beings are perfectly rational? That the efficient market hypothesis plays out 100%? No. So what's going on then? Do we agree that all of our decisions are based on logic and data alone? If that were true, we would be watching, all of your news just on a black and white screen with data. All of your business decisions would be made on an Excel sheet alone, without the element of the human factor, without the element of emotion. So what really is happening? The brain is a decision-making machine. And these are some of the key words that impact us all the time. I would have mapped more than 18,000 brains in India in depth with our technology. There's not a single super achiever, whether it is entrepreneurs, business leaders, politicians, bureaucrats, artists, Bollywood, you name it. Not one person is immune to this. Greed, panic, fear of missing out, loss aversion. Are we seeing all of this stuff? How many people invest in stocks? Quick show of hands. Oh wow, almost everyone. Fantastic. Has anyone seen this behavior in themselves? Quick show of hands. So almost everyone has. You know, that's the beauty, that post facto, we'll all know that, arey yaar, I sold too early, right? You know, the markets were falling that day and I just couldn't hold on. My gut gave away. Next time I won't. Have you really changed that behavior the next time? But what's amazing is that we know that this is not what we need to do. We know each time we are making that mistake, but we are still not able to change. You know why? Because it's a proven fact that before you consciously made that decision to buy, sell, hold, be indecisive, be greedy, you know, be in panic, that decision was already made by your subconscious brain well before that moment. Maybe even 10 seconds before you realized it. And why is that happening? Because of all the points I mentioned of what makes us us. Our upbringing, the experiences, all of it. So we assume that these are just part of our personality, right? We'll say, oh, this person is, you know, a Manjava Khiladi, right? A veteran. What is that? We assume that this is how I am, or this is my personality, and I cannot change it. But actually, you can change your personality, your way of thinking, your mindset, your subconscious, the way you react, the way you respond at any age. And we do that day in, day out using a technological approach. Let me come to the subconscious brain since I've been talking about it. So the subconscious brain is really just about two things: patterns and energy. Patterns we spoke about a bit, right? Greed, fear, these are all subconscious patterns. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, today I'm going to be fearful when I go and trade, right? Nobody does that. The fear kicks in. It's a pattern. Since we're, you know, at a business event with a lot of analysts, a lot of sharp people with numbers, a quick shout out, what is 10 raised to the power of 15? Let me give you a tip. I did that same slide about a few weeks ago, and a very smart person in the audience said 10 with 15 zeros. I said, great. That's 1,000 trillion. And that each one of us has in our brains. That's the number of neuron connections in our brains. On an average, each one of our brains has 100 billion neurons. Each one of those is connected, each neuron is connected to 10,000. So that's 1,000 trillion connections. We store 2.5 million gigabytes of data in our brain. An adult brain, 2.5 million GB. Think about that. 2%, what do you think this is? Come on, guys. The last session, let's have some fun. No. No. That is your brain's weight compared to your body weight. So your brain weighs 2% of your body weight on an average. But it has 25% of your body's cholesterol. 1/4 of your cholesterol is in your brain. So please, the next time somebody tells you to cut cholesterol, just think about it, yeah? You'll be cutting some from your brain as well. Because 60% of your brain is made up of fat. You actually need fat for a healthy brain. 33%, what do you think this is? Now this is really important, guys, come on. It's not usage. No. Exactly. That is the percentage of your total energy consumption done by the brain. So if you're consuming 1,500 calories in a day, 500 were consumed by your brain. What do you think this is? Surely not your speed of running. Fantastic, sir. That is the speed of data transfer within the brain. It's faster than a bullet train. Why do you think that's happening now? Because we have gone from a physical load society to a cognitive load society. Think about it. When was the last time in human evolution that we had to absorb and process so much data? Every time you see a color, you're processing data. You're juggling your memory to decide that, yes, it's blue or green or whatever. Every microsecond, you're processing data. And you know how much data you're taking in every second? Take a wild guess. 11 Mbps, 11 million bits per second. If you're awake, that's the number. But, unfortunately, only 50 bits per second is processed by your conscious mind. Only 50 bits per second. So your subconscious brain is 99% of who you are. You might think, oh, I'm being very mindful, very conscious in what I'm doing. Sorry, sir. Sorry, ma'am. It's your subconscious. It's pre-decided. These are patterns. So your subconscious brain is 3 lakh times more powerful than your conscious mind. 3 lakh times. Let that sink in. Any golfers here? A few. I love this image, not by me. It says 1.5 seconds of thought. Most of those thoughts are part of your subconscious. The indecision, the doubt, right? I'm just going to switch gears for a minute. So how is all of this cognitive power coming to the brain? It's actually residing, surprisingly, not on top. It's inside. It's called the little brain. The cerebellum. It has 80% of the neurons of your brain. And very important functions like emotional regulation, control, all of the decision making happens there to a very large extent. Closing the loop on patterns. So we just discussed that the brain is just about 2% of your body weight, but consumes 1/3 of your energy, which means the mass to energy consumption ratio is so lopsided, the brain has evolved over millions of years to conserve energy. So it does not want to think about the same thing in the same manner again and again consciously. It pushes it to the subconscious. It creates a pattern. It creates a habit. It develops biases for thinking. It develops a mindset over repeated interaction, repeated experiences again and again and again. And I'm going to switch to the energy side. I spoke about, patterns for the subconscious brain, and the second part is energy. So we need energy because we are consuming so much of it. So there's something called as the energy currency of the body. It's ATP, adenosine triphosphate. It powers every cell of your body, almost every biophysiological process in your body. And it is made by mitochondria, which are your energy powerhouses. So each cell in our body has a mitochondria, or many of mitochondria, and they produce ATP. It's used for pretty much all physiological biochemical processes. You will not be able to breathe, think, do anything. 100 billion neurons. Each neuron has 2 million mitochondria. Each neuron. So 100 billion raised to 2 million. That's the number of mitochondria you have. You consume about your body weight in ATP every day. It's being produced and consumed by our body. Your brain alone consumes 6 kg of ATP every day. And lastly, this is one of the ways where you can actually use technology to increase energy production in your brain by using red and near infrared light therapy, which gets absorbed by the mitochondria to increase ATP production and give you more energy. I see I've run out of time, but happy to take questions since this is the last session. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. You know, the mind is just a manifestation. Mind is fickle. It's a manifestation of your thoughts, beliefs, ideals, values, all of that. But the mind is simply what the brain produces. Without the brain, you can't have a mind, right? And your mind is so fickle, it'll change, right? I mean, I see clients, you know, very successful people who'll come in and say, oh, you know, I'm feeling sad and depressed, etc., because certain things haven't been happening or certain events haven't been happening. And I'll say, great, you know, you're going to be taking your anti-anxiety pill. What if I said instead of the pill, you just receive this genuine letter, not a Nigerian scam, which says you've, you know, won a $2 billion lottery. Are you still anxious and sad and depressed? They said, no. So what changed? Your mind, right? But can your mind alone then solve the problems of your subconscious? Because that pattern has existed over a period of time. So the differentiation, and a perfect example would be, anybody knows a chain smoker, cigarette smoker? Hands up. Now, I'm not saying if you're smoking, but we all know somebody. That person is literate, educated, knows it's bad, injurious for health, probably giving you cancer, cardiovascular disease. Why is he or she not able to quit? Because the consciousness, mind knows it's bad, but the subconscious has got a pattern which needs that again and again and again. So how do you break out of that pattern? It's not easy. Yes, sir. Right. Right. And what is intuition?
Homemade definition, it's the mysterious space between mind and emotion.
Very well put. So intuition, also as a neuroscientist, is brainwave patterns which precedes decision making, precedes that exact moment when you decide. So there are studies now which up to 10 seconds before the exact moment of decision making are capturing brain waves that something different happened exactly about 8 to 10 seconds before. You can call it intuition, you can call it experience, you can call it your ability to connect the dots, whatever you like. Yes, sir. Sorry, could you just holler a bit? Or, yeah, there's a mic there.
Hello, yeah. Can anyone be perfect, or is it a just state of mind?
No, I don't think anybody can be perfect. I mean, first of all, you know, what is perfect? It's a definition by somebody. So what's perfect for you might not be perfect for the other person. So I wouldn't be sure to chase perfection, but yes, you can chase constant improvement, right? Better effectiveness, better efficiency, a better ability to, let's say, be calm, better response to anxiety, better response to stress, etc. The lady back there, she's been, yeah. There, sir, there's the lady in the pink there on the second table.
I finished my question.
My question is, in this era of multi-social media where we are we get too much distracted with so many social forums, calls, emails and all of that. So my question is, can you concentrate in one thing, or alternatively, can you advise how to concentrate?
Great question. Yes, you can concentrate on one thing. You just need the right incentive, right? So when you are watching your favorite, soap opera or movie on Netflix or a series, you are absorbed in it, right? Because it's not tedious work, right? You don't have to make some tough decisions or calculations. So as long as you have the right incentive, like Rohan Bopanna said that, hey, I just persevered. You had to work hard. So if you're able to give yourself the right incentive and say, this is good for me in the short term, but not in the long term. So I will need to do things which are good for me in the long term. So in neuroscience, we call that self-regulation. The ability of the brain to regulate its own needs and wants and put short-term pleasure away for long-term gain. That is the only way to progress, right?
Hello.
Of course, absolutely, you're right. So, the heart doesn't think so. That's what we were told in Bollywood and Hollywood,
Hello.
That
Yeah.
think from the heart and there's something happening here. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's all here. So you can actually map networks which will make you fall in love or fall out of love.
Yeah, hello.
Sorry, where are you,
yeah,
sir?
Here, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, here. Sir, how would that Elon Musk chip make different brain work differently? Because now that all those things will become redundant when those chips comes into your brain.
I'm glad you brought that up. I should be thanking him because in the last 7 years since my company Neuroleap has been around, every time Musk makes an announcement, somebody calls me up and says, hey boss, in India you're the expert, batao kya chal raha hai? So I'm like, great, I get free PR. But so we are at the other end of the spectrum. My company Neuroleap, we are not on the invasive side. We don't cut open your skull and put a chip inside. We only read your brain waves from the outside, absolutely, non-invasively. But yes, we are headed for an amazing era where you will have the choice to say, hey, do I need to have a phone? Do I need to have a television screen? I will just have a chip in my brain where I can see the movies by closing my eyes. I will be able to contact anyone, anywhere in the world through the internet because those contacts will be stored on a chip. It will happen in our lifetimes, absolutely.
Chip will become
and
my
don't be too
subconscious
baffled
brain.
about it. Come to think of it, the pacemaker. When do you think the pacemaker came into our lives? 70, 80 years ago, when we were not so tech savvy, right? We were way more afraid of technology. And somebody said, I'll put this, piece inside my heart. Like Sir said, I have to think with my heart and I've got something else inside. So if we did that 80 years ago, we are absolutely ripe to get a chip inside our brain. I'm not proposing that we do, but I think we'll have that opportunity and it has some amazing ethical implications going forward. What does it mean for education? What does it mean for jobs? What does it mean for computing? What does it mean for performance? All of that. Great. I think we've run out of time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that wonderful address. Please just stay back for a second. That was really wonderful, and I'm sure you're going to get mobbed after this.
Sure.
So keep your energy up. I would request Mr. Akshay Sapru, Country Head, Yes Private and Liabilities, to please come over. It's Country Head for Product and Program, Yes Bank also. So he's going to felicitate Mr. Bagrodia with a souvenir courtesy, Yes Private. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. All right, we are at the fag end of the summit. Max Life Insurance is one of India's leading companies that offers multiple life insurance and policies with transparency and credibility. And over the years, it has endorsed a vision towards uplifting the socio-economic condition of the society. To amplify this vision and further delve into economic growth opportunities fostered by the insurance sector, may I please invite on stage Ranbir Singh Dariwal, CEO, Max Life Pension Fund Management, for the closing remarks.
Thank you. And the most interesting part of the session, closing remarks. So, when I got to know I'll be the last one speaking, but I was assured that there are drinks and dinner after this. So I was sure that, there'll be somebody who will be staying back. So thank you all. So, and Prashant, I was thinking, how do I open this, and I was looking for one word to say that, how did this session go? And sometimes I think the simplest is the most powerful one. And, I just could think of, wow, and that's how the entire panel discussions today, what experience and what inspirational stories that we heard today on the panel today. So thank you everybody for sharing those insights. And the first step, India, fifth largest economy with a vision of 30 trillion. I think the first step is, for any journey is to complete is to take the first step. And by defining this vision very clearly, $10 trillion by 2030, I think we have taken that first step. We have very clearly defined what we need to achieve, and we have clearly put a timeline around it. So I think this vision is, very much possible. So, and today's session, presented by Yes Bank and CNBC, and with all the positive enthusiasm that we saw from the panelists, I believe that this vision is very much achievable, and if we all work together, this is quite achievable before time. So how do we look at growth? How do we achieve growth? Not just growth, but robust, resilient, with tighter governance. So how do we look at it? So in my mind, the most commonly used word today is AI, and I just thought of an acronym sitting here looking at all the experience that was shared today. ACE AI, and these are 5 things which I could summarize, how we could achieve growth here today. So A stands for accessibility. That's what we heard from all the experience today, that all the policies which are available should be accessible to all, and it should be easily accessible. Change, C, very important. We saw so many examples, changing at the right time, being ahead of the curve. Ease of doing business. I think that's very important for any growth engine for a nation. There should be ease of doing business. Awareness, financial awareness, reforms which are available, those awareness should be available with everybody. And most importantly is inclusion. So, we have, if we are looking as a nation wanting to grow, all of us have to come together, and there should be an inclusivity in financials as well, whether it is SME, MSME, large corporates, women, men, so inclusivity plays a most important role. Another extremely important element, which I see for growth is security, safety. So once you are secured, safe, that's when it gives you confidence to look beyond and take more risk and look for higher aims. And some interesting facts, that I would like to give. As a nation, by 2030, India will have more than 35 crores in population, which will be above 50 years. That's a phenomenal number. We keep doing a lot of research, IPQ and IRIS, which is India Retirement Index. Through those surveys, we find out that 33% of people believe that their financial will be over after the retirement within 5 years. So we haven't prepared for ourselves for the big day, which is the retirement day. So what are the first steps that we need to do? In my mind, insurance can play a very large role, an important factor in this entire vision that we have, of 10 trillion economy by 2030. And the first steps that I think we should be doing is debunk this myth that insurance is an expense, we don't need it. Whether it is business, whether it is individual, whether it is health, I think insurance is something that all of us should be looking at. So that myth needs to be broken, that insurance is an expense. Second, why do I need a pension? I think all of us need pension. There are fortunate few, and when we are talking about as a nation, we need to look at wholesome. So there are very fortunate few which may think that, they don't require pensions, but it's very important from a government agenda, if you look at it, that we have a pension society. So I think these are the 2 things that, we should collectively as leaders here should try and break this myth. Now, as Max Life, we are fully aligned to this vision of 10 trillion economy by 2030 and multi-trillion economy by 2047. And we fully support the vision of the government, the vision of our regulators, IRDA, that we should be having insurance for all by 2047, and PFRDA, that we should create a pension society. Now, as Max Life, some of the steps that we will be taking, and obviously we'll need all of your support in this, we will ensure there is comprehensive coverage for all. And that is very, very important, that we cater to all society elements here. So we have a comprehensive coverage for all. We empower awareness initiatives. So we will invest from our side to create this kind of awareness. And we address the accessibility challenges by having simple, innovative distribution, creating that vast reach, having some great partners onboarded who can help us spread this awareness. We are committed to this vision fully, and we believe with the positive sentiments today displayed by all the leaders, with the policy support that we have from the government, and if all the industry leaders come together, India, Bharat, can easily achieve a 10 trillion economy by 2030. And as Rohan Bopana said, there are no limitations. So let's ensure that we become a 10 trillion economy. I won't take much of your time. Thank you so much. Please take care.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for summing up the entire evening for us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the Mumbai edition of Yes Bank and CNBC-TV18 present the Growth Summit, Vision for a $10 trillion economy in association with Max Life Insurance. It has been a fabulous evening with power-packed ideas and innovative discussions. And now I invite all of you to join us for dinner and drinks. Thank you so much for being a lovely audience. Thank you. Bank and Max Life Insurance. Please also do not forget to collect your souvenirs from the front desk before leaving.